Welcome back to pixelprojectradio. This is part 2 of our Outer Wilds analysis. Once again, I'm joined by Josh from the Still Loading podcast. Josh, how's it going?
Oh, I'm doing fine and dandy, just living in an existential something, and we'll leave it at that. But other than that existential panic, I'm doing fine and dandy.
Perfect. That's how we like to do it here. On the last episode, you heard us decide in real time to expand this into 3 episodes. I think that will be beneficial all in all. There's a lot to talk about with this game. There's a lot to talk about with the ending. Last time, we got the preliminary discussion finished, the mechanics, how the game looks, overall thoughts. This episode, we're picking up where we left off on Giant's Deep. We're going to finish up on Giant's Deep. We're also going to talk about the Sun Station, which we mentioned last time. We're going to go through Ember Twin and Brito Hollow, as well as Hollow's Lantern, the Interloper, and possibly introduce Dark Bramble. We'll save the rest, that would be the Ash Twin and the Ash Twin Project, the bulk of Dark Bramble, the Quantum Moon, and the ending. We'll save all of that for next time, as well as the larger discussion on symbolism and thematic ideas and things like that. Last episode, I think we let our excitement carry us, or I should say I let my excitement carry me a little bit too much.
It was both of us. It was definitely both of us. During
the editing process, the pacing felt just a little bit weird to me, so thank you, everybody, for your patience. I think this will be a little bit tighter today, and it'll be a little bit easier on us, too, since we're not operating under quite a strict deadline. But please do stick around for the next installment, the final episode next week, where we get to talk about all of the meat of the game. This episode will still be very interesting, I'm sure, but next week is where the stuff gets real. So, all of that exposition out of the way, let's talk some Outer Wilds.
Oh, I'm ready.
Last time we introduced Giant's Deep, a planet that gave me a little bit of a strife, our gas giant that has raging storms all over it.
Yeah.
This time I thought we could start by talking about the core.
All right. The core is such a fun mystery to solve in this, and I guess if I remember correctly, Rick, we're not too worried about like spoilers for the puzzles in this. I would assume, right? At this point.
Yes, at this point, all spoilers are on the table. We will try to not spoil anything about, for example, Dark Bramble or the ending during this episode, but we'll do our best to keep things going as we go. But yes, now that we're talking about the core, all spoilers are on the table.
All right, I just wanted to make sure. But so the core, that was one of my favorite aha moments in terms of like solving puzzles and like just figuring stuff out and, gathering information throughout the game. Now, I don't remember because the information on how to solve puzzles on different planets is located all over the place. Like, you're not going to solve all of Giant's Deep puzzles on Giant's Deep. Like, all the information that you need for that isn't necessarily located on that planet, which normally I'd get frustrated with, but this game is so well designed. It's designed for you to hop around and to come back to different places and whatnot. And the core of Giant's Deep, there's you fly into the gas giant, you get this giant storm, you see like tornadoes everywhere, and then you go into the water and then you see this like weird like shell that you just can't seem to get around, and no matter what you do. And I believe then there's even a core inside of that, right? There's like 3 layers inside Giant's Deep, if I'm remembering correctly. There's like an undercurrent that you can't quite get into unless you have to stand on one of the islands that gets sucked up by a tornado, and then when it falls back down, you essentially ride it down, because it'll plunge deep enough where if you're at a right spot, you can actually get through the first layer, and then there's like an electric core layer inside, if I'm remembering correctly.
So is that how you got down into the second layer?
Yes,
you rode the island.
I rode the island, and you had to like
Metallica's greatest flop of an album, Ride the Island.
You had to like sit in the base of it or something like that, and then when it went down, I think that's what I did. It's been like a couple of years since, and then because I remember, I know there's one island like you can't swim down, like to get underneath it. I remember it was like hard to do. Like if you had to like wait. Like I waited underneath an island, and then you could see like a hole almost. That was how I did it, but I'm kind of blanking a little bit on it, but that first layer I remember riding an island down and then hopping down underneath it because I couldn't figure out how to get into it otherwise.
So there are a couple of ways to get down into the secondary layer that's right outside of the core where all the jellyfish are. That's one of them. You can also, and this is the way that I did it, I found this out by accident, but in Giant's Deep, there are myriad cyclones going on, just loads of them.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all spinning clockwise except for one. One of them is spinning counterclockwise. Now, I found this out by accident, but if you visit the Southern Observatory, you can actually see a model of this in action and you can test this for yourself. If you drive into the one, whether with your jetpack or a little more smartly with your ship, you will, instead of getting shot into the atmosphere, you get sucked down below because that force is reversed, and that'll push you down. There is a third way as well, though I've never done it. You can, I'm pretty sure this is how, I've never done it, but I know it involves shooting your ship with great force into Giant's Deep. I'm pretty sure you do that with the orbital probe cannon, or the gravity cannon on one of the planets.
Yeah.
I've never done that, and I mentioned in the last episode that I tried doing it with the eject button, and that just killed me immediately. But I know that there's a way to shoot your ship. I haven't tried it, but whether you do it in your ship by riding the cyclone down, or whether you get shot down in one of the islands, you will end up in the second layer. And now the challenge is getting into the core. The core is surrounded by a lightning energy, and well, there's really no way to talk about this. Again, I want to go back to what you said earlier, Josh, and this is a disclaimer that we gave in the last episode too. You're not meant to solve this game planet by planet. You're sort of meant to go and connect the dots across multiple planets. So there's really no perfect way to cover this game on this kind of a podcast, but bear with us. The way to do this is to crawl inside of a jellyfish. Just get right up in there.
Get right up in there.
And the jellyfish are actually resistant to the electric, and for whatever reason, they go in and out of the core. That's just kind of what they do, jellyfish things. The way that you find this out, as far as I know, I think this is the only way to find this out. You find this out through Feldspar's notes. If you'll remember, Feldspar is our mysterious, legendary captain. He's lost. You can find his notes of his traversals and his conquests all over various planets. And in one of them, he talks about conquering Giant's Deep. He's been to the core. He mentions in another area, well, there's really no way to get around this. You do end up talking to Feldspar at one point in time, and he gives you a little hint on where to go. And once you get there, you find some notes of his. The notes talk about him eating the jellyfish, and he's saying how terrible they taste. Like that's the point of the notes, is talking about how terrible the jellyfish taste. But the notes will also tell you that they're resistant to electricity, that you can get inside of them and be protected from that. So that's how you get down into the core, which I have to be honest, I would have never figured that out by myself.
I think I figured it actually out by myself. But it was one of those, I wonder if I could do this type of things. It wasn't like I knew it. It definitely was not like, aha, I know exactly how to solve this. When I saw the jellyfish passing through the core, I'm like, I wonder, jellyfish have that hollow center. But I'm assuming I can't get stung by them. I don't know if you can actually. I worked into the assumption.
That's what I was going to ask you. A lot of people say that they have trouble with this section because they get stung and killed by the jellyfish. I never had that problem.
I think you can get stung and killed by the jellyfish leading up to the inside of the jellyfish. I don't know if you get stung inside. I just worked under the assumption that you would get stung, so I was extra cautious. But I just remember figuring that out, and that's what I mentioned before. This was one of the most rewarding puzzles, because when I saw that it worked, I went, oh my God, that actually, holy shit. Like, it was just one of the few moments I actually felt smart in my entire life, was just guessing. I'm like, I wonder. And it worked out. And something to note, too, with the exploration and like how this game gives you information, it's such an interestingly paced game, in that the way that you almost progress through this is that they give you some direction in the beginning of, like, you can find information here or there or wherever. They give you a couple jumping off points. So that way you can go to different spots and start exploring. When you go to whatever spot it told you to, you will learn a whole bunch of information there. And it's not just, like I said, it's not going to be just information on whichever planet you're at. It's going to be, across the different planets. So you might go to, like when you get into the core here, and I believe you get some extra information inside the core here. Once you get inside the core, you learn a whole bunch of new things. I can't remember what exactly you learn in the core specifically, but you learn a whole bunch of new things, and that might give you the information you learn in the core might give you like hints of what you need to do over in Brittle Hollow or over in Dark Bramble or over in the Ash Twin project or any of those types of things. Like it gives you hints for all these different spots, and it almost like they have like each point of interest is almost directing you to a little nugget, a pocket of information that's expansive to like tons and tons of other planets. So it's interesting how it works where they never, even if you are following, the directions that they give you, start here and go here. When you go there, they give you like 6 different, maybe not that many, like 3 different points of like interest that you can then explore, and you can choose which way you want to go. So it's interesting how like their progression is pretty much like, you go from information point to information point, but each information point is packed with other equally important information points, and it just allows you to choose which way you want to go. So to figure out, the core here, you might have had to go to like 3 or 4 different like points or spots on other planets, and you can use the information collectively between those however many spots you went to figure out the core or figure out the orbital cannon or figure out whatever it may be, right? So I just thinking about how they design the way they designed the information to get to you, how they relayed that information to you, I find kind of interesting. It's almost like each section is like, here's a bunch of new abilities, but the abilities aren't like actual game mechanics. It's just knowledge. It's really interesting.
Right. It's fundamentally a knowledge-based game. It's not so much breadcrumbing so much as it is, like the analogy I used last time was that of a puzzle. You sometimes get pieces that fit together and make sense in the corner, and then maybe you go to another corner, and then maybe all of a sudden you start finding pieces that fit in the middle. And you don't know how the middles are going to connect to the corners, but you've got pieces here, and if you follow the dots that you find, you're going to be okay in the long run. You had mentioned you don't remember what we find down here. Let's talk about it. There's actually one extraordinarily important piece of information down here, and it is in relation to that mystery that I said grabbed me immediately upon the start of the game. The first thing that you see when you wake up and you see something shooting, like a shooting star in the sky, followed by ashen debris. That is the orbital probe cannon that is firing and falling apart, and that's what we find in the deep, or at least part of it. Anyway, in the core, we find part of it in there. So let's back up and talk about the orbital probe cannon. This thing is crazy. Like the first time I realized that I could land on it was kind of another aha moment in the game for me. It was very early on, but I was like, oh my God, you can just land on whatever you can find out here. It's not just planets. Like this is, it's very cool.
Now, I have a story about the orbital probe cannon. So, like you said, that first thing when you open your eyes and you see the thing shoot out, once you learn what the probe actually is, it's a probe to find the eye of the universe, right? It's a probe that I think they even were able to figure out the coordinates for the eye of the universe or something like that. And it's supposed to go there somehow. Like they somehow figured out a way, theoretically, it was supposed to find the eye of the universe. I don't know if they actually did it correctly, but from what I remember, it was supposedly like they were going to shoot it off and it was going to find it. So when I read that, I'm like, oh, I wonder if I can find it if I follow it. So if you restart the cycle, get in your ship like immediately and book it to and book it towards Giant's Deep, specifically where the cannon shoots, you can actually catch up to the probe. And I followed it for like 40 minutes. It didn't work. But I followed it for a really long time, and I don't know if the time loop pauses for it? Because I was going for a long time. I could have sworn it was longer than 20 minutes, but I also wasn't timing it. That didn't work though. So fun fact, that does not work, but it was a fun experiment.
I think I just saw this post on the Reddit. I might be wrong. This might have been something else, but I think there is a very small chance, because like you said, the probe fires to find the eye of the universe, and it fires in a straight line, obviously. I think there's a very small chance that it fires into Timber Hearth, because I saw a post on Reddit where within seconds of waking up, they go up to their ship, and as they're walking toward it, something from the sky just crashes and blows everything up, ship included. I think that was it. Might be wrong. Oh my God. But you are right. It is shooting that probe out to find the eye of the universe. So when we go up into the wreckage of the orbital probe cannon, there's one room that is immediately accessible to you, and this is the control module. I don't know if this is in the control module, but you can find the reason that the cannon blows up. You can find writing on this from one of the Nomai named Avens. They say, "Cassava tells me he and the construction yard crew have determined a power setting. We are not under any circumstances to go above." And then Avens' partner Mallow says, "I see, and am I right to think that consequently we will be ignoring that setting?" Avens says, I can posit with nearly 100% certainty that our friends have accounted for our natures, so I suggest we do." And what's actually funny is in a completely different location, you can find when they set the power levels, and they did say, like, yeah, Mallow is going to want to go over. Let's tell them a little bit lower, so we can account for their over-enthusiasm. I love the little details in the writing like that. It is stupendous.
And it's just a reward for people who explore it enough and take the time to read it all. Like it's great. The sense of humor is fantastic in this game.
The control module, it's the one of the three modules inside of the probe cannon wreckage we can get into manually, normally, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
In here, you find that the cannon received coordinates from the Ash Twin project, which you might be learning about for the first time here, and it was asked to fire. It did it successfully, but then it broke apart because of the power being set too high. Cassava writes again, "I have bad news, Avens. Yarrow says there was a problem with the proposed power source, so the orbital probe cannon won't be asked to fire." Avens says, "I hope you are pulling my locomotive limb here, Cassava." Cassava replies, "I wish I were, my friend, but no. They aren't certain they can fix the problem, so the orbital probe cannon is on indefinite hiatus." So this is interesting because we see it fire at the beginning of every loop, but they're saying here that it was put on pause for a while because the proposed power source just wasn't up to snuff. So at this point in time, you might be thinking, what's that about? We will learn that in this episode for sure. There's also this projection pool here, which I mentioned that I started this once and kind of burnt out on it. My first time through, again, I wasn't playing the game like it wanted me to, and I wasn't looking at my journal and stuff. I wasn't sure what this projection pool is, but what this pool does is you can direct the power to various nodules, and it will show you projections of what has happened here, the data that they have. And the projection pool here shows us that this happened. The Ash Twin project sent out, at the beginning of our loop, a request for the probe to fire at what it thinks was the eye of the universe. It was the eye of the universe. You can see that there's another place that we'll talk about shortly where it's like over 9 million loops, and they finally found one that matches all known data. So that it got sent out. The cannon fired, but then because Mallow set the power too high, before they actually were trying to launch, it was already set too high, and the cannon fell apart. So that's the control module. Pretty cool stuff.
I loved figuring this out because I think then, like I said, like once you learn that and it was trying to find the eye of the universe, I just followed it. Like I said, what's crazy is if you fly away from the solar system, eventually you can't see anything. And I'm pretty sure they just, like, you could literally see the distance from the sun just going up and up and up and up and up.
That's how you get one of the non-standard game overs in this game. That's called the isolation.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's called the isolation ending. You can actually, if you start soon enough, you can fly far enough away that the supernova of the sun doesn't get you. But then the screen fades and it says something to the effect of, like, you wandered about in space until you ran out of supplies and you eventually died.
Oh, jeez. Man, this game is brutal.
Yeah.
It's so brutal.
There are 2 more modules for the orbital probe cannon. The control module is the only one we can get into through the door. The launch module is kind of busted. We can't get through it, but the outside of it, the window has shattered, and you can get in that way. You can fly, you can get out of the orbital probe cannon, go into space, and then climb in through the wreckage. In the launch module, we learned that the probe tracking module, that's the 3rd one, would be the first to know the coordinates of the eye. This is where Mallow, we also get some details here. Mallow wasn't just over-enthusiastic. He set the source, the power source so high, the power setting so high, because the eye is so far away that having it shot out, having the probe shot out at the greatest amount of force would give them the greatest odds of success. It was a pragmatic decision, but it also probably played into Mallow's enthusiasm.
And I guess it just kind of adds more to the world building with this, I guess. Just learning more about these characters as you go on, because that's the crazy thing about this game, is that you actually get a sense of the characters of the world just through reading all these journals. And I just hearing this whole back and forth between Mallow and the other scientists, and just you get a small glimpse into what their everyday life was like, which is just a testament to the writing with this. What was it, Kelsey Beecham was the writer for this? Just amazing stuff.
The final module here, the probe tracking module, is just straight up missing. That's the one that, in the wreckage of the probe cannon, it fell to the core of Giant's Deep. The clue that you can get that it's down here, if you don't find it first, is on these projection stones that we see lying about on every planet. You can plug them into their modules, and it'll give you this sort of holographic projection as if you were in the room of where that room is. For example, if you put in the Ash Twin Project Stone, it'll show you a projection as if you were standing in that room. Now, when we do that with the probe tracking module, we can see that we're in the module. It looks just like the control module, but there is electricity all around the outside. And that's your clue that it's down there. And when you go down there, you can go inside of this thing. And what we find out here is that there were over 9 million probes launched. And at first, this totally confused me. Completely confused me. It'll make sense as we get towards the end of either this episode or next episode. At first, that it's looping, right? It's probably because of the loop. That's why they could fire 9,300,000 or so odd times. There was 10 before the maximum number that they fired that they found what they believe to be the eye. All known quantities and data sets match the eye. Of the eye are matching this new location. So that's here. We also see one last statue. And it took me until my second playthrough to figure out what this was. At first, I was like, well, who is this connected to? And then after I beat it, I was like, okay, I know who it's connected to, but I was wrong. I learned on my second playthrough. Because one thing that's not immediately clear is that despite what we talked about in the last episode with the statue workshop, I think we did anyway, the statues link to living beings, but they can also link to modules that they created. I did not know that my first time around, but that is the case here. This is linked to a module somewhere.
I don't think I even caught that my first playthrough either. I always just remembered the statues being connected to the individual, which is why you have the one traveler. It's not Feldspar. It's is it Gabbo? Who's
Gabbro.
Aware. Gabbro is aware that he's in a time loop as well, because he's also connected to one of those statues. there's a lot, like, that's the crazy thing about this too, is that there is so many things that you can miss playing this game. Like it's one of those games where, like, if you are a real lore hound for stuff like this, there is so much to dig into in this game's world. And I think that just is what's so I think I said it in the first episode, but I think it's worth reiterating, is that this game is just, what impresses me the most about it, I should say, is that any other game, like so many games do, where you have space travel and exploration, they give you, like, you can explore hundreds of planets or even like 50 to 60 planets or whatever. And generally when you have that many, they're all, they're going to fall into like a handful of categories, because, logistically it just doesn't make sense for a game developer to hand make like over 100 planets, right? It's not feasible in terms of budget or time. So this game completely ignores that problem by only giving you like a handful of planets to explore, but each one is so interesting and so packed with lore, and like each planet has its own mechanic, pretty much its own gameplay mechanic, its own gimmick, and it adds so much replayability in the sense that you can then go back and explore new things. Like, I still feel, I know we haven't gotten to these planets yet, but the twins, there's a lot to explore with that in there still. I feel like I'm missing like half of it. I won't say why until we get to it, but it's crazy. Like Giant's Deep, what's interesting about this planet is that it's relatively straightforward in the sense that there's only a handful of islands that get shot up into the sky by the tornadoes, or sucked down sucked down because of tornadoes or whatnot. And while that is the case, there still is a interesting puzzle with how the core works, how it gives you different layers of like obfuscation, just literally like the entire planet is meant like that. You can't see what's happening in the planet until you get inside it. All of a sudden you're in tornadoes, and then you can't see what's happening under the water until the tornado shoots you down. And now you see core, and you can't see what's happening inside the core until you ride a jellyfish inside of it. Like each planet has its own kind of like gameplay theme or gimmick, and it doesn't feel samey in the slightest. And I can't get enough of that. And so like with back to what we're talking about with Giant's Deep here, like just getting down to this, like a lot of, like, I didn't even remember the statue, but like there's so many things even on planets that don't have as much on them per se, but there's lore that you can miss so easily, or you did find it and you didn't piece it together. And that's what's kind of fun about doing episodes like this, is that you can learn more about things that you might have missed or you didn't think about from a specific perspective.
Right. It's one of the ways that this work succeeds. It's almost as much about gathering, talk about thematically appropriate. It's almost as important to gather with others and discuss your findings and talk about potential ideas and theories.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. That fits. Oh, that's eerie how much that fits into the themes.
Right, dude. It is the core identity of this game. When I say this is a masterpiece, man, I mean it. You had mentioned going to other planets. I think we can do that now. In my notes, I had one other thing on Giant's Deep to talk about, and that is the first quantum rule. I think it might make more sense to save talking about these until we talk about the quantum moon, though. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I don't even remember what the... Oh, okay. I see what you have written down for the first quantum rule. I was trying to like, what is the first? So I remember how the quantum rules work in this. I guess it's pretty scientifically accurate. I wouldn't say I know for certain.
Oh, okay, sure.
Is it scientifically accurate?
I don't know.
Have no idea.
You said it with such authority. I was like, okay, cool.
I'm assuming
I don't know what you do.
Considering it seems accurate. My sense of like how accurate science is has also been thrown off. I just beat Parasite Eve for the first time, like literally, like a week ago, or not a week ago,
sure.
Yes, 2 nights ago, and now I'm like, can my mitochondria rebel against my body? Like, what's happening?
I actually, whenever I played that for the show, I looked into that. I think that's technically possible, but extraordinarily unlikely.
What? Oh my God. Let me tell you, Rick, if you ever want to see one of the creepiest images of your life as a final boss, that game is for you.
Yeah, we covered it on the show a while back with.
Oh, you did. I'm sorry.
Yeah, with Nomad from Retro Wildlands.
Oh, my bad. For some reason, I thought that you said I'm planning on covering it on the show. I misheard.
No, you're good. You're good. So let's save the Tower of Quantum Trials until we talk about the Quantum Moon. Let's move on to another planet, a new one. And since you mentioned the twins, why don't we go to Ember Twin?
All right.
Our resident astronaut here is Chert. Chert is the one playing. Real chewy, a real chewy name.
I'm Chert. Nice to meet you. It sounds like a Muppet almost.
Yeah, kinda, yeah. Or like a Monty Python character. I don't know. I think I hear the name Chert and I think of that Woody Word sketch that they did. I don't know what. I love Python, man. It's great. Chert is out here. He's the one with the congas. I think it's congas. It's not bongos. They're too small to be bongos. It might be congas. Drums, hand drums. And Chert is updating star charts. Chert says it's one of the best planets to do it on. Chert is fascinating because Chert will go through. I'm now using their names because I keep catching myself applying gender to them. I'm going Japanese and just using their names. Chert will go through the classical stages of grief, whenever he learns that the universe is dying, when the sun is going supernova. You talk to Chert and Chert will be like, oh my, is it? I see so many supernova. He's the one that will tell you first, hey, if you look out there with your signal scope, you'll see stars going supernova. All that bright explosion, yeah, that's galaxies going bye-bye. And he'll be like, well, I have been seeing more lately. Could it be? And when you tell him, hey, yeah, everything's exploding, he freaks out. But if you go up to him at the very end, and I don't know if you did this, Josh, this was very powerful to me. If you go up to him towards the end of the loop, he'll be like, I've just been thinking about this so much, how the world's coming to an end, and do you just want to sit down with me and just look at the stars?
I don't think wow.
That ends the conversation route with him. If you try to talk to Chert after that, he'll just say he says something to the effect, I'll edit it in, it'd be a nice way to go, or just looking at the stars together, or something like that. He accepts it at the very end. And I don't know, it was very moving to see Chert work through his anxieties about the finality of life. Oh my God, I don't want to keep saying just wait till the next episode, but so much of this is going to tie back once we get to the ending, and it's going to come into a greater context, and I hope it moves all of you as much as it moved me. I really did have a very profound experience with this game, but seeing Chert go through those stages and accept that, life is about to be over and that there's still time to appreciate what we have here, it left me speechless.
I feel like I did not get that. I might have gotten that with Chert, but I don't remember specifically. I do know I think I kind of did stuff like that just in general with some of the other explorers. I was specifically Gabbro on Giant Deep, not to bring it back to that planet again, but I remember a couple times the time loop was going to end, and like I said, I did not know there was a meditate button, so I never meditated once. I waited out the entire time loop every single time. But I remember it was like you hear the music come on, and I can still hear the musical sting in my head from when the sun's about to go supernova. And I'm like, well, not much more I can do on this round. And I would just sit down next to Gabbro, and we will go into it more with the thematic discussion next episode, but you sit around a campfire and you can just put it like a marshmallow over it. You just kind of roasting a marshmallow on a campfire as the world kind of comes to an end. It was really surreal doing that. It happened a handful of times, but you just kind of live through it, or not live through it, but you just kind of you do that a bunch of times and you're just sitting. It's just hanging out with, I wouldn't even call them a friend. You just met them really for the first time, but this is they're your connection back to home. So you want to kind of be near someone who's connecting you back to home as you're about to witness a supernova engulf everything. Right. It's more primal. It's very surreal.
It's more primal than friendship. It goes so much deeper than whatever our society defines as friend. It's species related. It's that it's that deep. It's so good. freaking love this game, man. So Ember Twin, that's Chert. You could talk to Chert a bunch. You can refuel. He's got a nice little setup going there. Yeah, Chert. The first thing that I found here was this is where the first of 3 escape pods crashed. This is something that we didn't talk about because this there was no escape pod on Giant's Deep. I think we can spoil this. This isn't a huge deal. You find this out in Brittle Hollow. There was a Nomai ship called the Vessel. It's like their mothership, right? And at some point, they either crash landed or were violently attacked by, or maybe a little bit of both, Dark Brandon, Dark Bramble. And when they crashed into that, they sent out 3 escape pods with everybody on board. 1 escape pod got tangled up in Dark Bramble. It's still there. The other 2 crashed into Brittle Hollow, and number 2 right here, Ember Twin. And you can read their logs. You could read the ship's logs. You can read their notes they left behind. The one here, they had to descend deep down inside where we're about to go because Hollow's lantern, the moon, the Ember Moon. Wait, am I thinking of this right? Ember Twin? They were they had to go down inside because the moon was shooting fireballs onto the surface. Is that this one?
Yeah, it was something like that. Do they have different names, the 2 planets?
They do. The Hourglass Twins. This is the Ember Twin. The other one, which we'll get to next episode, is the Ash Twin.
Okay. So I think it's worth mentioning right off the top, without it going into what specifically, is on Ash Twin. But like the interesting thing about these 2 planets is that there's a lot of sand on Ash Twin, and there is like none on Ember Twin. And as the time loop goes on, sand from Ash Twin is constantly getting sucked up towards Ember Twin, and you actually can see the sand rising. So it creates as we get into it. So Ember Twin is like, it's very cavernous. Like I think I don't remember exactly if they hid in there because of like exploding rocks, because it is close to the sun, so that would not surprise me actually.
Yeah.
So I would not be surprised if there was stuff that was getting too close to them. It was a way to protect them from it. But the Ember Twin, the planet we're talking about right now, is a big cave system, like really deep caves all over the place. It take you lots of different places, which is why I mentioned before, like I never quite feel like there's something I'm missing in there still, even though I'm pretty sure I got all the information, but I don't know. It's a pretty large cave system, and because the planet fills up with sand, you only have a limited amount of time to explore all that, because the sand will either trap you in there and eventually kill you, or you meditate your way out. I did not have that, and I got crushed to death by the sand. Let me tell you, that was one of the most uncomfortable, unsettling deaths of the entire playthrough, because there's like a crunching sound of like your suit breaking, and then you make a couple like groaning sounds, and then it just fades to black. I'm like, oh god. It was really brutal.
Well, yeah, man. It's sand. It's rough. It's coarse. It gets everywhere.
Okay, Anakin.
Dude, that's like 5 episodes in a row there's been a Star Wars reference. I don't know what's going on. I'm not even a big Star Wars fan. I like it fine, but it's just so quotable. You had mentioned, let's the Hourglass Twins. These 2 planets. If you picture a dumbbell with each of the weights on each side being circular. That's what this planetary system looks like. They are 2 planets that are in each other's orbit and linked together in the middle by this column of sand that goes back and forth. It'll drain from one planet and then go back into that planet across the loop. Now, you might be wondering 2 things. You might be wondering, well, doesn't that change the center of gravity? Yes. More on that later. You might be wondering, how the heck does it do that? There is no real explanation. Like the Nomai write in their logs. We don't know why this is happening, but it is. And it's good enough for them. It's got to be good enough for us. We just have to accept that one. But it is very cool. And like you said, you do have a time limit. At first, you're going to be feeling that crunch because you don't know these cave systems very well. Towards the end, you're going to be totally fine. Like at the very end, I actually had to wait for the sand to fill up to even access the high energy lab, which we'll talk about in a second here, which is actually on the lowest floor. So towards the end, you can be a real speedster with some of this stuff. But as we said, as Josh said, this is a cave system. When the escape pod crashed, they descended, the Nomai did, into these caves to make a temporary settlement. Inside, you can find various cave systems, but their city, their makeshift city that they built, is sort of hidden deep away. You have to follow their directions. I've read some folks online say that this was confusing. I didn't really see it that way. You just kind of, it's very rural directions, like, hop across this cavern and hang a left at the sand waterfall and then go up through the ceiling. I don't know. When you grow up in southwestern Pennsylvania, you're used to this kind of stuff, You turn left at this landmark and then keep going a ways and then hang a right whenever you get here. But anyway, enough of me trying to be funny. Down here, you can find the settlement that they created. They did create a little settlement here. And what they did here and in Brittle Hollow, which I find very interesting, is they tend to build their settlements with verticality highly in mind. When we think of areas, communities, we think of horizontal space, Euclidean space in that way. Think of a cul-de-sac, it loops around, right? Think of apartment, we call them blocks by nature of how they're set up. The Nomai kind of build up. So they've got 4 different tiers of city here. And this is called the Sunless City, by the way. And the 4 tiers are the High Energy Lab Trailhead, which we'll talk about first, I think, the Stepping Stone District, the Anglerfish Overlook District, which is very cool, and the Eye Shrine District. Another thing that they debated about here, you can see in their writings, is the building of what's called the Sun Station. Now, we're going to talk about the Sun Station here in a few minutes, but you can find them debating about it here. Specifically, the ethics of this idea were questioned. There is a Nomai named Idea. It's spelled like idea, but with an extra A in there. I think it's Idea. Idea says, I almost can't comprehend this as being suggested seriously. The purpose of the Sun Station goes against every standard we hold ourselves to and everything we believe in as a species. The potential annihilation of an entire star system is too severe a cost. We shouldn't build the Sun Station no matter how badly we want the knowledge that comes with it. And another Nomai named Poke chimes in, fear of failure is a poor reason not to try. I believe if we're cautious, the Sun Station will work. I believe in Pi. Pi being another Nomai that's working on this stuff.
Pye is how you spell his name. Just so you don't get hungry.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little difficult to parse out what's going on here. This is the first time I had learned of the Sun Station in my playthrough. It's a little tough to parse out what's going on, but the Sun Station is an idea that they proposed as a means to manually detonate the sun. And this, earlier in the last episode, Josh, as I was editing, I came across us talking about this. We had first talked about Timber Hearth, and we saw that they were purposefully not mining the planet down to a nub because they wanted to make sure that future life could flourish. And you had said, they're very clearly a benevolent species. And I had said, now, I don't know about that because of a red herring. This is the red herring I was talking about. I did not, if you're like me, and I'm sure there are many like me, just like me, that walk and talk like me, but they're not me. How's that song go? I don't know.
I thought you were doing the Jungle Book for a second.
I want to be like you. Love that music.
I want to walk like you.
That classic Disney stuff, man, is so good. I lost my train of thought. If you're like me, you didn't find the Timber Hearth stuff first. You found this first. And so when I got here, my thought process was, the sun is going supernova because of the Nomai. They started this. This is their fault. And now my game plan, my mission of playing the game, in addition to finding knowledge, is how do I stop the Nomai? That's what I'm thinking at this time. What the hell? Why are the Nomai so bent on blowing this place up, and how can I save us? That's where my mind was.
I could see that. I think so. I actually found the Sun Station prior to hearing it here, but I couldn't get to it. There is like an actual Sun Station orbiting around the sun. There is a way to get to it through teleports, which I don't think are in here. They're somewhere else. Maybe it is here. I don't remember exactly, but there's a teleportation method that'll just like warp you to it. But if you are a good enough pilot, you theoretically could land on the sun station, which would be insane because it's traveling around the sun incredibly fast speeds.
You get an achievement for that.
It's I can't even imagine how you'd like begin to attempt it. The only thing I can think of is like sit on the edge of the orbit and hope that it doesn't suck you up in time.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I kind of want to hold off talking about the sun station until the next episode because there's kind of a big reveal in the sun station. And I know it might be a bit of a pain for some listeners to hear us talk about and reference certain things and then say, we'll get there. We'll get there. I know, I understand. There's no perfect way to cover this game linearly. It just can't be done. So please accept our apologies, or my apologies anyway. We'll talk about the sun station next time. I never did manage to land on it, by the way. I never got that achievement.
I don't think I got that achievement either, so that's a tough one.
For now, though, let's talk about these 4 tiers of the Sunless City. And why don't we go ahead and start with the high energy lab, since it is tier number 1, the lowest.
Mm-hmm.
This one is a little tricky to get to. There are certain points where you actually have to wait for the sand to fill up certain areas so you don't step on all these spiny cactuses. So if you get there too quickly, you do have to hurry up and wait, as Yogi Berra said, which I had to do a lot, especially towards the end, because you're going to be doing this a lot, and you're going to memorize the paths real well. But you get to the high energy lab, you have to take a roundabout route because it got closed off for testing, because they are testing some seriously cool stuff in here. And this is where the Ash Twin Project was born. More on that soon. This is where they also confirmed that warping from the White Hole Station to Brittle Hollow broke the laws of time.
It's worth noting the White Hole Station, there's a black hole, which I don't think I want to spoil where that is just yet because we haven't gotten to that part of the game. But the White Hole Station is on the other side of that, if I remember correctly, right? That if I'm remembering where the White Hole Station is?
Yeah, sort of. If you go into the black hole, you exit the white hole. That's kind of how they function in this game. I don't know if that is scientifically accurate. I think so. Black holes are like theorized, but we can't take a picture of a black hole, right? But they are theorized, and they're all but known to exist. Whereas white holes, I think, only exist in theory. I don't think I don't have the confidence to speak authoritatively on this, but I'm pretty sure white holes are only a theoretical possibility, whereas black holes, while we can't see them, we're certain they exist. Does that make sense? While I was wrong about black holes, we do have photos of them, and they are very, very cool to look at. White hole is theoretical. Black holes for sure exist. There are photos of them, not just a theoretical possibility, which I don't think I said, but I want to just get ahead of that and cover all my bases, cross my I's and dot my T's, White holes, theoretical region. It's very interesting stuff. Definitely go and do a wiki deep dive or an internet perusal. It's cool. All right, back to the episode.
It's almost like black holes are mathematically proven to exist, where white holes are still just kind of like, well, we think it might.
Yeah, kind of like the imaginary number, right? Like we can't hold I oranges, but I is a theoretical possibility. Same too here. If you fall into the black hole, you get shot out of the white hole. They built a station called the White Hole Station specifically because that kept happening, which I think is just hilarious. But they learned that there was a slight time anomaly, that things were coming out of the white hole infinitesimally sooner than entering the black hole. And this is what PYE says. Pi says, records show Nomai arriving at the warp receiver on Brittle Hollow very slightly before departing from the White Hole Station. Raimi and I are devising an experiment to test if this is a real phenomenon or simply machine error. Initial things. First, our experiment setup will feature a pair of small black hole cores with a small white hole core to mimic the setup on the White Hole Station. Raimi chimes in. Hypothesis. It is possible for an object to exit a white hole before entering the corresponding black hole. So they made these tiny little black hole cores and white hole cores. They mimic the setup. They found that this was probable. I think what happened, and I'm kicking myself for not taking even more detailed notes, even though like Josh is looking at my notes, they're long. I think what they found was that it was so small that they couldn't confirm whether it was equipment failure or not, or equipment error. So they wanted to increase the power to increase the interval of time anomaly, right? Makes sense. Mm-hmm. So what they did was they took all of the energy from the Sunless City and routed it to the high energy lab, and they confirmed their hypothesis. And in their writing, they get so excited. They're like, hypothesis confirmed. It's confirmed. I saw it. We all saw it. They routed all the energy in, and they did see that there absolutely is. It's not equipment error. Things are coming out sooner than they enter.
That's okay.
Right. And then the Southern Observatory writes in, and they ask if they can make a time discrepancy of 22 minutes. This is where my brains were just exploding.
Yeah.
22 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm. So, like, they basically, what this is telling us now is that because we know that the sun station is going to induce a black hole, a supernova, right? So the theory is that by creating a black hole and you coming out through the white hole, that they're specifically saying, could we make this time discrepancy not just be like super small, infinitesimal or whatever that fancy word is, make it 22 minutes, which is the exact length of the time loop that you've been playing through the entire time.
Yes. It's brilliant. And what the writing suggests here, what they say is they're like, yeah, that would, it's theoretically possible, but it would take so much energy. And this is where somebody says, I think it's here anyway. This is where they suggest, like, what if something like a supernova, like, could that provide enough energy? And this is where the sun station idea was born. So the idea being, if they blow up the sun on purpose, they could trigger this 22-minute negative interval of functionally sending somebody back in time 22 minutes. So now we know why they want to blow up the sun. If we're still thinking that way, if you're me, now we know why. Well, no, we know how. We don't know why they want to send everybody back.
I'll be honest, I forget exactly why they wanted to blow up the sun in the first place.
Well, it was specifically for this, to power. They want to blow it up as an energy source, to send folks back 22 minutes. To send.
Is that literally the only reason, though? Is the only reason because they want to send people back 22 minutes?
Yes, but the Ash Twin Project would have also needed this energy source of the sun supernovaing. That's what powers the Ash Twin Project, which in turn causes the 22-minute interval loop. So at the end of the day, the sun blowing up, that's their prerequisite. That's their power source. It's not malicious. They just, we know it's not malicious, but viewers or players in real time might not know that. Mm-hmm. Clear as mud.
This game really does like to wrap itself. What's the expression some people say? Forgot it. An enigma wrapped in a mystery.
Sounds delicious.
Those yummy enigmas. Sorry,
I think they're on special down at the deli. The next two sections of this city, the Stepping Stone District and the Anglerfish Overlook, they kind of tie into each other. I don't think we need to separate them. The Stepping Stone District is this really cool cave that just has a series of like standalone. What's the ones that come out of the floor? Stalagmites. Stalactite.
There is a whole thing that, stalagmites are stalagmites because they might reach the floor or something like that. Hold on, stalagmites and I'll Google it real quick. Stalactites hang from the ceiling because they are tight to the ceiling, while stalagmites grow from the cave floor because they might reach the ceiling. But the problem is, that's what I heard one time. The one is tight to the ceiling and the other one might reach the ceiling or something like that. But if you swap it around and say, well, stalactites are tight to the floor and the stalagmites might reach the floor, so it's very easy to forget which it is. But stalactites are from the ceiling and stalagmites are from the floor.
A stalagmite by any other name still comes out of the ground as sweet. And that's what we're hopping on across this.
That was my high school band's name.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
We didn't get very far.
You have to hop across these to get from one side of this cave to the other. If you come out of the other side, it just takes you back to the central room of this area, just in a different point in the cave. But what makes this area unique is it's how you get into the Angler Overlook district. Throughout a bunch of this cave system, you see child Nomai writing in that adorable, scrawly, scrawny, sloppy-looking writing. And you see them talking about playing in the anglerfish caves. And they're like, yeah, I'm still small enough to get in there, but you're not. Nuh-uh, yes, I am. Oh, you won't be in a couple years because your dad's the tallest, like that kind of, kid stuff, But we can't get in there. We're too big. The way to do that is you have to shoot your your little scout into the mouth of this giant anglerfish skeleton. Horrifying thing to find by accident. This gigantic skeleton of an anglerfish.
Oh, it scared the shit out of me.
Huge teeth, right? It's so scary. You shoot your light in. The children call it feeding the anglerfish. And it'll show you the way. And what that means is you shoot the scout in. It lights up the cave because it's got a light on it. And when you're in the Stepping Stone district, you can look up and see your scout, both by the light and by your little tracker that's on screen. And that's how you get into the Anglerfish Overlook district, which I thought was pretty cool. That was one of the first things I solved on my own that made me feel super smart, like you had said earlier. This was what did it for me. This is what made me say oh yeah, I'm good at the game. Finally.
I believe the Anglerfish district, or the Overlook district, Anglerfish Overlook district, dear Lord, it also is key to a puzzle in another planet. One of the big ones, to beat the game, in all honesty. You learn a very crucial piece of information. I believe that's where I remember learning it. Am I correct with that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're
it's
correct.
In this district.
Now I will say I did get past that puzzle without being here, but that was trial and error, and it would have been so much faster had I known this.
Yeah.
But you come into here, and it's just all writing from the kids. They were playing this game that was, I don't know, it's kind of like tag, kind of like freeze tag, keep away, one of those children's games. And one of them was the anglerfish, and you see in the writing that they amend the rules, and they're like, now whoever's the anglerfish has to wear a blindfold. And they're like, oh, that's not fair. And then they're like, well, no, because it's what mom and dad found out. They're studying the anglerfish and they can't see, so now you can't see either. And you can find writing from the parents too that are like, oh, this is so sweet, but they shouldn't be playing in that cave because it's dangerous. But I thought that was so adorable. Yes, this is a really, really paramount clue paramount to success, but also it's just children being children. And I don't know. I'm not a parent, but I find that really, really wholesome.
I played this when I was not a parent, so I would have to replay it now as a parent and see how it is. But either way, once again, just kind of lends to what that point I mentioned at Giants Deep, but just the world building with the dialogue. It really just makes each planet feel like a lived in place.
Yeah, absolutely. Imagine how dull and boring this game and flat this game would be if none of this was here and you just found research notes and you didn't feel because I don't know about you, Josh. At the end of the game, I might not have known every Nomai by name, and I might not have been able to keep them straight worth a damn, but I felt like I really knew some of these people.
Absolutely. There is actual character building within these. Like I said, it's been a couple years since I've beaten it, but the thing that is so amazing and also kind of frustrating about this is that once you play through it, it's hard to replay it again. So like you really have to go, just because once you know the solutions, like it's hard to just, like, you already know the knowledge, you know what I mean? So you would have to really go back and search for everything. And I think one of the reasons to replay this, besides just the fact that it's a great game, is just kind of learning more about this culture, which is like, I just can't get over how well written it is. Like, it's not just what is said, it's how it is said and how the information is laid out. Like, imagine having to write a game where you don't know what the player is going to read first, and how do you write it in a way that makes sense for them to be able to piece things together. Like, I know I keep harping on this, but I really just cannot get over just the level of expertise, both in terms of the actual dialogue written by Kelsey Beecham and also the design sensibility for where that it was placed and the pacing in which the information is revealed to you. Just everything about it. I can't get over it. I'm sorry I keep harping on this point, but I don't think people realize how hard that is. I'm not a game designer per se, but like, imagine having to write like that. Like, I can't even fathom it. Like, it's just so well crafted.
I mean, you would have to be writing inwards from several different points at any given time. I mean, all of your praise is spot on, and I agree wholeheartedly. You know, this isn't a complex dialogue tree like Fallout or Disco Elysium, but it's no less impressive. You know, I mean, if you think of it in certain ways, Disco Elysium, Fallout, games like that, Elder Scrolls, the dialogue trees are 2D, two-dimensional. They just, they branch off, they go down, they go left, they go right. This takes that off of the page and twists it in and around itself. Mobius loop, right? It's so fucking it's such a happy coincidence that serendipitous is the word I was thinking of, that they that their studio is named that, Mobius loop, because that's what this dialogue is, man. It goes up and down, but also forward and back, in and around itself. It's amazing. Kelsey did an amazing job. I'm sure Kelsey had people working with her, but I mean, she has the credit. So Kelsey and co, amazing.
Absolutely.
But that's kind of the anglerfish district. Now, the final one is the Eye Shrine district. This is dedicated, we see this on Brittle Hollow too, a dedicated section to just musing about what the eye of the universe is. This is something we've alluded to a little bit here. We talked about it in the last episode. The eye of the universe is this mysterious signal that the Nomai found. It's why they're in this solar system. I don't remember where we learned this, but the Nomai don't have like a home planet. It's not a coincidence that their name is so etymologically similar to nomad, right?
Yep.
I mean, they're wanderers, and they came here because they found the signal from the eye. They named it that because it looks like an eye, and it's older than the entire universe. And how the heck is that possible? So here they come. And some of the writing here that you can find is very interesting. And it's not attributed to anybody. It's just kind of like a scientific musings board. It says, if the eye called to us, why won't it reveal itself? Why is it so difficult to locate it? Did something happen to it? Did the signal stop? Does the eye no longer desire to be found? Perhaps this isn't the eye's choice. The eye may not be able to communicate with us more than it already has. We would be seeing meaning where there is none. Suppose the signal was produced incidentally. Does that mean the eye is any less important, though? So they're wondering, did it call out intentionally? Is it sentient? Does it want to be found? Does it care? Is this all just a big coincidence? And I love this kind of thing. There's the eye in this game. The eye can represent so many things. Some people can call it a MacGuffin if they're feeling particularly cynical. You can say that it represents mankind's perpetual thirst and search for knowledge, which is accurate. It also represents in some ways unknowable knowledge, which is a conversation I do really want to save till next time. I apologize, but this idea that there are things that human beings, even with complete knowledge, maybe we just can't know. I don't want to say divine or sacred, but it wouldn't be incorrect to say something like that. Things beyond scientific understanding, right?
I mean, as growing up as a religious kid, like, this is very much like God coded to me, Some growing up Christian, like the eye of the universe, like this thing that sends out a signal to you, but you only really you will only find it if you seek it. That's a very Christ allegory. Like, I don't think it's intended, mind you. I don't think necessarily that, I mean, not that I know Alex Beecham or Kelsey Beecham or anything like that, but I'm just assuming it probably isn't that. But like, you could read it as that easily. You could easily interpret it for yourself as like a very heavy religious allegory of just like, you know, God's always there for you, if he's always reaching out for you if you just, you know, reach back, type of thing. Which I'm not going to go into. I will spare your listeners any religious stuff.
Well, no,
like, while I am still religious, I'm not really the type to shove it down people's throats.
No, I think it's apt, because while this is the sign of any good art, right? Whether or not it's intended almost becomes immaterial. It's, can you justify your interpretation through meaningful dialogue, through meaningful examples? And we can here. You know, maybe they didn't intend it. It doesn't mean that we can't cite it that way. I mean, it's quantum in that way, right? It's anything until it's observed. It can mean anything. But no, you're right. I think I also grew up religious. I was an altar boy throughout high school, regrettably. I wish I didn't have to do it, or at least that's how I felt then. Anyway, growing up in a religious household, I'm sure you as well as I have at various times thought like, okay, maybe God's all-knowing. Does he know who I am? Like, does he hear me? Does he care? Like, is it a he at all? Is it a being that defies my understanding? Is this all a coincidence? Did God create man as a coincidence? You know, and you know, we muse on all of this stuff either when we're at Denny's in high school after hours, after imbibing on certain substances, or you know, we muse on it, you know, when we haven't read religious texts.
Oh, I don't need any substances to muse on this. I constantly, like I said before, I am still like religious. I am still a Christian, but like, I am constantly questioning my own faith, and I am musing about it all the time. Where like, I'm not to get too deep into it, but like, I'm honestly at a point now where like, I'm starting to question a lot of the interpretations of the Bible as they were taught to me, which I think is very healthy and important. Like, what is it? There's a group of people out there who who don't believe anymore, but they call themselves ex-evangelicals. And I very much feel a lot of kinship with them, just seeing this. So just hearing some of their stories, I should say. It's just one of those things where, you know, I growing up, it just felt so normal to me. And then I started hearing other people. I'm like, oh shit, I grew up in an evangelical household and I didn't even know it. But coming like to this game, like bringing it back to Outer Wilds, it's very hard for me whenever I see stuff like this to not like have some type of like, well, I wonder how this compares to God. Because like, even if I'm not necessarily that religious anymore, I should say that I am Christian but not religious. Anyway, I'm losing myself in the weeds here. But like,
it's all good.
It's still, because of my upbringing, it's hard for me not to compare stuff to. So playing this game, there was a little bit of that religious experience, but it on a different level.
I think it's healthy to analyze and question one's religion thoroughly and deeply all the time. I don't know specifically what I would call myself or if I would call myself anything, but I do think that religion ultimately is every bit as internal as it is external. You know, there are a lot of sects, and maybe for various reasons, we can't get into all of that spend a lot of their time thinking about the Bible's stories and when they happened and what God meant. And I think religion is so much deeper and more important than that. Yes, those stories are important, but they're ultimately just there to serve a higher purpose.
That's where I'm at, in all honesty, with my own, like, quote unquote walk with Christ, if I'm going to do a cheesy fucking evangelical phrase. They're meant to serve, like, you shouldn't, like, I'm at the point now where I'm not taking the Bible literally, or my like religion quite literally, that as I was raised to believe it, where like, this is a quick digression, but like, for example, you know the story of like Joseph and his like dream coat that his father gave him, that beautiful rainbow coat that his brothers were all jealous of, so much that they sold him into slavery and shit like that.
So jealous they made a musical about it.
Yeah. So what's wild? I was listening to, this was like a year ago or so. There's a a trans man pastor. I forget his name. I feel so bad. I have to remember. I can't remember his name. But he was talking about, like, if you look at the original Hebrew text of that story, the word used to describe Joseph's beautiful coat only appears one other portion of the Bible, and it's used to describe traditional princess garb. So that's interesting, where it's like, I mean, granted, it's this one specific pastor's interpretation, but it gets you thinking, where it's like, well, if it only appears one other time in the Bible and it's used to describe a princess garb, was he wearing something that maybe was more effeminate? And maybe that's why his brothers were so, like, his brothers were so just, like, against him. Maybe they were, I don't know. Maybe they just had, like, either, like, transphobic or just, I'm not quite sure, but that's not something that you're taught growing up. So that's why I kind of say, like, I always feel weird talking about this, because I don't know. I get a little self-conscious, because understandably so, people hear, oh, you're religious, you're Christian, and then they turn off, because honestly, Christians have done a lot of fucked up shit, and they continue to do a lot of fucked up shit to our country. And not to get too sidetracked into that either, but I get nervous bringing it up. So I was even a little nervous making the religious comparison to the Eye of the Universe in the first place, but I thought it at least warranted it.
And it absolutely warrants it. I understand your apprehension and your reticence. I really do. I think it's a personal failing if somebody writes off somebody else or their opinions because of their religion. I think that is absolutely bananas and ridiculous. But to bring it back to the interpretation thing, yes, most definitely in terms of language and things like that. But also, I really don't want to make a tangent that is an hour about religion, although I know we could.
We definitely could.
We could. But I'll say this. The quote that I always come back to is from former full-time co-host of the show, Ben Bugale, who has worked in the church since he was old enough to work. He has a pithy response anytime politics come up, and it's that his favorite socialist from history was probably Jesus Christ. And I think there's a pretty big interpretation error in a lot of modern day Christians, cafeteria Christians, I've heard them called, and because they pick and choose typically on Sundays what they want to believe. And I love that very much. They don't walk the walk of Christ. They
not
think,
in the slightest.
They don't even talk the talk. They think they do, but they don't hear his message. They talk, but they don't listen. They don't hear when Christ said to do well by your fellow man. They don't hear what that means, and they get all up in arms about people wanting to just live their lives and not be harassed to death. They read a passage about laying with another man and don't take into account things like eons of translation issues and things of that nature, if they can even speak another language other than English. Again, the last thing I want to do is piss anybody off and lose listenership, but I think all of this religious illusion is perfectly acceptable, and there's an essay in here somewhere about it. I'm sure there is.
I mean, the last thing I'll comment on with it is that, at least for us in the U.S., American Christians very much identify they value their political identity over their religion. And for example, there was I saw a video from this environmental scientist who went to like a church in Texas or something like that. And once her church members found out that she was studying the environment and climate change, they ostracized her and started harassing her because of it. And because even though the Bible literally says to be stewards of the earth, they don't care about that. They value their political leanings more than what their own religion is trying to tell them. The book they claim is, holy and you should listen to it type of thing. So Americans very much so follow their religion in a political manner instead of, in any other semblance. They value their political identity more than their religious standing.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate reality. It really, really is. I think
anyway,
I this is an interesting conversation to have, but perhaps not the episode on which to do it.
Yeah, who knows if this will make it in the final cut, but feel free to leave it in if you choose to, Rick.
I think most of it will. Speaking of interpretation, though, one last thing here. This is where we, quote unquote, meet a young Solanum, an important nomai, a nomai that you will know by name for reasons, or at least I hope you do, because that event is optional, and I scratch my head at that, but whatever. This is where I first met a young Solanum. She is scared of the eye, much like children are scared of God. And I mean, the similarities keep coming, because here's what Solanum writes. She says, "I don't know why everyone says the eye is so important. They say it brought us to the solar system, but is that good? Dad, I mean, in any of this, just replace I with God. Dad told me lots of Nomai died when our clan came here. What if the eye wanted that to happen? What if the eye isn't something good?" So we see the fear of God, actual, being instilled into this young Nomai named Solanum. Just wondering precociously, I would assume. I mean, I wasn't thinking like this whenever I was like 8.
No, same.
Like all of this war and famine in the world. And I mean, people still struggle with this, and I don't think there's a good answer. All of this war and famine and children dying, homeless dying in the streets, people being executed for being witches at 30 years old, 20 years old. Where's the justice in that? What loving God, this, oh my God, I forgot which philosopher this goes back to. If, the benevolent, omniscient, and all-knowing, you can't be all of those given the circumstances of the world. I wasn't prepared. I didn't study this philosophy. I can't cite it right now. But you know what I mean, right? Solanum is stumbling onto that. If God is all-knowing, why does he let this happen? Does he not know? Then he's not all-knowing. If he does know and he's letting it happen, then he's not benevolent. Then why should we worship this God? Etc., etc., etc. Very precocious kid. Solanum, oh man, I love Solanum so much.
Her character, I totally forgot about. I mean, I didn't forget about. I remember finding her at the later portion that we'll get to. I don't know if we're getting into it today or in this episode or next, but I guess it really just kind of does lend to our point before that this is, it very much feels like a religious allegory at this point, if someone's questioning, if Solanum is questioning, like, is the eye actually even good for us? And also you could tie it back, though, even if you don't go the religious aspect, the eye almost represents in this instance like this relentless pursuit of knowledge, which a lot of the Nomai seem hell-bent on, and that's why they're even trying to, they're arguing and debating over, like, is it ethical to blow up the sun for this experiment of ours? In this endless pursuit of knowledge, how much knowledge are we what are we willing to do in this pursuit of knowledge, which fits into the themes of the game really well, because are you willing to die tons and tons of times to learn more about this universe? Like, are you going to go through this time? How many times are you willing to go through this time loop to learn more about what the world is around you and whatnot? Which I know we said we weren't going to go into themes, but we kind of stumbled into it by accident a little bit there.
Yeah, this is a major one. No, I think this was good. I think this was a good topic to sit on for a minute. There's one other place here in the Ember Twin to touch on for the moment, and that's the gravity cannon. This might be the first time you stumble upon one of these. It was the first time I did. It's this cannon that has this Nomai control on the front, which I don't remember if we talked about. The Nomai controls are you point your cursor over them, and it lets you hover these balls telepathically to the left and the right, to the up and the down.
These balls.
Yeah, it's that famous Little John song that didn't do so well. Which, means in universe the Nomai controlled them telepathically.
These balls. Sorry.
So one of those is here, and you can call back. Well, there are two options. You can activate the cannon or call back the shuttle, and then it'll tell you where the shuttle's resting. There are several gravity cannons around. You can shoot your own ship off of a gravity cannon, which you get an achievement for, called like Patui or something like that. Pretty cool.
I think I did that one.
But this one is linked to the shuttle on this comet that we're going to talk about right after this. That's why I put it here. This comet's called the Interloper. It's at the very end of our galaxy map, very far away, covered in ice. And we can call that shuttle back here. It's the only way to get inside because, again, it's covered in ice. And when we do that, we call it back here. It brings it back via the warp core technology. And inside, there is a Nomai named Clary that is distressing that Pi, PYE, and Poke haven't returned from exploring the comet yet. Something was going down on that comet, so why don't we go ahead and take a jaunt over there. This one won't be quite as long to talk about, but it is very, very tragic. Did you do this on your run? Because my first one, I couldn't figure this out.
No, I did. I figured out a way to land on this comet. So the interloper, the way this comet works, like you said, it's covered in ice. And I forget exactly how it happened, but I was like exploring around on it. You know, you can land on the comet. It's a little tricky, but it's not too bad. I landed on the comet, and I was like walking around trying to like, okay, what, like, this is clearly here for a reason. What's going on? And I guess the timing was just right because the comet flew towards the sun, and it gets very close to the sun, not enough to crash into it. It'll kind of go around it on a weird trajectory. But its orbit is more of an oval as opposed to a circle. And you get close to the sun, and that melts the ice then that's on there. And that reveals a cave system, a very small one, nothing crazy, but it is a cave system that you would not be able to get to otherwise until you wait for it to the water to melt. And when you explore that cave system, that's where you find Pi and the other Nomai that they're referencing here. And this is also the discovery of ghost matter.
Yes, both of their corpses are here, Pi and Poke, intact, not like skeletons like we find virtually everywhere in this solar system. Mm-hmm. And like you said, the ghost matter here is rampant. This cave system, how it works is there's one path, or maybe two technically, or maybe three technically, maybe four, do I hear five, that gets you down into the core where you can find their last notes. But several of these tunnels in this cave system, which are encased in ice, by the way, they're like very fast, slippy slides. It's very fun until you die, because the ghost matter is in here. And while you can get away with like going through one path through ghost matter, like it won't kill you, if you try to go through two, you will die. So the trick here is to shoot your scout and just take pictures like crazy as it's going down to see which routes are safe.
Yep.
It's very clever. I liked this a lot.
It was a fun section, and they teach you that mechanic really early on, because when you're exploring, when you're on Timberhearth right before you take off, before you get the launch codes and everything, it's one of the tutorial sections where they show you can see the ghost matter by taking pictures with your scout. And so that lesson comes back to play here in order to figure it out. And like, once again, that opening section, they give you lots of information on like lots of tutorial stuff, and you don't realize everything you need until you get to it. And this is one of those examples where like you don't really see ghost matter much on like in any of the other planets, with the exception of, I think you also see it on Brittle Hollow, which we'll get to.
Lots on Brittle Hollow.
Yeah. But like this is the first I think I first saw it on Brittle Hollow, but like, you know, for the purposes of our conversations, the first time we're seeing it. And you see it here, and you see all these different tunnels. I think I might have died the one time without realizing. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm just going to go figure it out. But I if I remember correctly, they do give you like an audio warning, like, hey, you're getting close to this. Like you're getting close to some ghost matter.
Yeah, if you touch it, well, if your scout goes through it, you get an audio cue. But if you're going through it, I don't think you get the audio and visual cue until you're in it. Which by that point, unless you're going real fast through just one, it's going to be tough. But at any rate, you get to the bottom here, and there is this huge, like, crystallized section of the comet. And what you learn here, this is really tragic. Up until this point, remember, the Nomai want to explode the sun, right? They want to wipe out the universe for some reason. We don't know why, but they want to blow it up. Why are they doing this? We don't know. We're here to save them. That must have been what killed them. They somehow, whatever, their ambitions. What we find here is that they were attracted to this comet, one, because it just happened to come in and, you know, they were curious. But they found these readings here. That's what prompted them to get out of the shuttle and explore. They found these extremely highly dense, intense readings of this vitriolic matter, this really dangerous matter. And in the center, it was packed so tightly and it was so dense and active that they deduced it was liable to explode any minute. At any time, this thing could just explode and all of this dangerous matter would just be scattered. And I mean, that's the fate of the Nomai. They didn't die by, natural causes. They didn't die from a supernova. The comet exploded, scattering ghost matter all across our galaxy. And at the time, it was just the Nomai here. They got completely extinct. That's why you see skeletons in classrooms, in random hallways. They were just vaporized. They didn't even... It happened so quickly, they didn't even have a chance to think about it, which is both a blessing in a way, but also highly tragic. They didn't know. And I think this...
Almost like Mount Vesuvius almost, right? Like,
yeah.
Well, that was not that fast, I guess, but like...
Even faster than that.
Yeah, it's even faster than that. But it just, that's the comparison I'm drawing. Because isn't it like in Mount Vesuvius, don't you see like petrified remains still from like people who didn't get away? Like, not to get too morbid, but like, didn't they find like petrified remains or something like that from people who didn't get away and just like instantly just, carbonized right there, pretty much?
Yes, but... And I might just not know the history well enough. My understanding, you could see some people you could see some people embracing their loved ones, which makes me think that they had at least a couple of moments to be like, "Oh, I know what's happening. Oh my God, terror." Whereas the Nomai, and again, I might be misunderstanding history. I might have missed something in Outer Wilds. It seemed like they just, with the exception of Poke and Pie, who knew what was happening. I didn't get the impression that any of the other Nomai knew what was coming, and it just wiped them out. And they didn't have really any time to think about it.
And that's just what makes exploring all of this that much more interesting. Because if you think about everything that's happening, we're kind of looking, it's almost post-apocalyptic in a sense where like, it's like, in other games where like the world has ended by some catastrophic thing, but the mechanisms and the machines that civilization built are able to function even without humans still there, right? Or even without that race still there. And so you're exploring all these planets and you're seeing all these different things that the Nomai built, but they've been long since dead, like they haven't been here for a while. And you're just exploring all these things that are somehow still operating, which we'll get into, but that explains a little bit of like why this time loop is happening, which we already touched on it, but like, why is this thing still functional? It kind of goes into a little bit later on.
Yeah. It's such an unfortunate situation. It's really distressing to think about. Like they were wiped out just sort of by happenstance. Had Poke and Pie not been there, it still would have exploded. Like they would have been wiped out no matter what. And it's just one of the harsh facts of the universe, right? I mean, we had mentioned the analogy I used in the last episode was that of a tiger, right? We think of tigers as these vicious, dangerous beasts. The tiger is just a tiger. It doesn't attribute any of those emotional judgments onto itself. It just is. Same too with the universe. I mean, yeah, this thing exploded, and yeah, the matter inside happens to be very toxic to our species of living beings, but that's just the way that's the cold reality of the universe. It is uncaring, and in a way that is really beautiful, right? It is beautiful that the universe is so objective. And what do we do with our time on Earth with that consciousness? Oh, next time. I promise, next time. One practical thing that you might be thinking is well, hey, you had said that primitive Hearthians, the little tadpoles, were around when the Nomai were here. Why weren't we wiped out? We could tell you why you're not wiped out. Because ghost matter doesn't really work so well in water. Like, it kind of neutralizes it. Supposedly, you can find this out in Giant's Deep. You remember you said, Josh, riding the island, the Metallica album, Ride the Island? Supposedly, if one of the islands has a short tunnel with ghost matter in it, supposedly, if you're near there and you go into that tunnel when that island is submerged underwater from the cyclone, supposedly you can learn this there. I tried and I just died every time. So I don't, maybe I'm just not good enough, but you don't learn it through text here, but you can learn that. So that's why the Hearthians never died from this. They were still tadpoles. They just evolved. Now, I mean, now we're not tadpoles. So now, yeah, it'll kill you. But if you're in water, no, you're fine.
They don't ever explain where ghost matter really comes from either, right? Like, I know it comes from the interloper, but like they don't ever, because they can't figure out that they never had a chance to figure out what it is. It killed them all.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, what's part of the theme is just that continuous cycle of knowledge, right? I mean, there will always be another unknown. And this is one of them. They never got to figure it out. We don't know. As Hearthians, we don't know either. Maybe Alex and Kelsey do, and they're keeping it a secret. Oh, that's another thing, Josh. Something that I learned today is that the DLC kind of expands on some of the core story of the game, apparently. Now, I accidentally spoiled something about the DLC. I don't think it's not related to ghost matter, and I also don't think it's like experience ruining, but when I read it by accident, I was like, oh, this is like this has a lot to do with like the base game. It's not just a separate thing. So maybe the answers are in there and you and I just haven't found it yet. Who knows?
Well, maybe we'll have to come back with an addendum episode, like a year later after we beat the DLC section.
Oh, I would love to. Did you start it yet?
No.
The DLC, I won't say much because I haven't found much, but it's like there's a lot of water on the planet and you navigate on a raft, and it's spooky. There's some spookiness.
Oh, I've heard it's scary, yeah.
Yeah, there's a reduced fright option. I heard it was actually pretty
scary. There's a reduced fright option?
Yeah, like an accessibility thing in the menu, because I guess there are some jump scares and some like mild alien isolation kind of like stalking things. I don't know. I haven't experienced it, but supposedly.
Well, I'm excited now. I'm not a big fan of horror stuff, but like if I like a game and it's going to freak me out a little bit, I will give it more of a chance. Or I'll give it a chance, I should say.
Let's do this. Let's talk some Brittle Hollow.
Okay.
We'll see where we get to. No expectations. At Brittle Hollow, the resident astronaut here is Rybeck, who I don't know how Rybeck can't be your favorite. He's certainly mine. I love this big oaf.
Is he the dude with the banjo?
He's the dude with the banjo. The scaredy cat.
It. Yeah.
That has a line that like made me cry at the very end. He's a scaredy cat. He's afraid of flying in space. You could find his notes on the moon. I think we talked about that briefly. He's really scared of flying in space. He found his camp in Brittle Hollow he tripped over something, and the gravity crystals happened to pull him into this camp because, Josh, you had mentioned this earlier. You had alluded to it. Do you want to tell everyone about Brittle Hollow's big secret in the middle?
Yes, there's a giant goddamn black hole in the middle of Brittle Hollow.
Yes, sir.
And you don't know it when you are first playing it because you're exploring the planet. And the first time it happened, I remember I was like, actually, you know how I found out? I didn't realize what happened right away. So I had to put the controller down. And I forget why I didn't pause the game, but I had to get up and do something. So I was like, I know there's the 22-minute time loop. Whatever, it's fine. I'm nowhere near it. I'm still early on. I'll come back to this. And I went to go do something in another room for a second, and then I was going to come back. And when I came back, I was suddenly at the White Hole Station. I went, what the fuck? I'm like, why am I at a completely different spot now? Where's Brittle Hollow? And then I'm like, where's my ship? And my ship was like all the way back at Brittle Hollow still, and I could see it, like on the HUD where it's like, however many thousands of kilometers away. I went, what the fuck happened? I was so confused. I had no idea what happened. I just suddenly ended up at the White Hole Station, which I love because when you first kind of get there, I don't know if you're including this as part of the Brittle Hollow, Rick, and we can save it and go into more details later if you wish, but the Nomai actually built a separate, like basically a space station right by the White by the white hole because so many people were falling into the black hole. They needed an easy way to transport people back to Brittle Hollow.
Yeah, yep. They made it for that express reason. You might be wondering, well, if Josh just set the controller down, how did he fall into the black hole? Well,
yes,
there is a moon around Brittle Hollow, but it's no moon. It's a volcanic entity that pelts.
That's another Star Wars reference.
Yeah, God damn it, I know, right? it pelts Brittle Hollow with these magma balls, and Brittle Hollow lives up to its name. It's not a dense planet, and it starts to crumble in on itself under the barrage of fireballs being shot at it. So if you stand around too long, the ground around you will eventually crumble and fall into the black hole, and hence you're at the White Hole Station.
Mm-hmm.
More on that black hole soon, though, because you could ride that thing, and it is exciting. It is exciting.
It's actually really cool. It's actually really fun once it's not scary anymore and you realize what it does and where it takes you and everything. It's actually kind of fun. Something you mentioned also, Rick, the energy crystals. This planet, Brittle Hollow specifically, is where you see a lot of those energy crystals that let you kind of like walk on walls and stuff too.
Yeah, this is my favorite planet by far in terms of design. Now I will say, in terms of traversing it, it did give me the most friction and kind of annoy me sometimes because there's one area of this in particular that you have to prep here and then warp to from another location. And that in particular did give me some struggles because, the planet is destroyed randomly. It's not destroyed in a fashion that is replicatable across playthroughs. The fireballs come down.
Oh, I didn't know that, actually. That makes sense.
Yeah, they're just procedurally generated. It's not destroyed and at least I don't think it is. But the route that I kept trying to take back kept getting destroyed, and my stubborn ass just kept trying to take it. So I was straight up speed running this at one point. Like I had it down to a science. I was going so freaking fast. I was Sonic. But eventually it didn't destroy the area that I was trying to do. But anyways, Escape Pod 1, we had talked about the escape pods earlier, and how they got launched out of the vessel that crashed into Dark Bramble. This is where Escape Pod 1 landed. They immediately had to go down and build a settlement below ground because of the fireballs coming. Then they noticed the black hole. So what they did was they have a temporary settlement down here as well as a more permanent one called the Hanging City. So cool. The city is...
I love this area, yeah.
The buildings and the roads are suspended off of the crust of the earth, but they're like hanging above the black hole. So when they eventually crumble into the black hole, you can see all of this floating in space, all of the pieces of the Hanging City. If you go there late enough into the loop, it is so cool. It's amazing. It's also really heartbreaking. You can read a lot of the writing that they wrote in the temporary settlement. After they crashed, they didn't know who was where. They were mourning people. It is tragic. One named Thatch wrote, "Is the hardest part of this tragedy not knowing who we may have lost, or will the hardest part come later when we learn?" And then in parentheses, "Be well, Aunt Melloray." Or another one, "The pain of your absence is sharp and haunting, and I would give anything not to know it. Anything but never knowing you at all, which would be worse. I can only hope that you are safe, Keek, wherever you are." And you see this across all of here. Like someone is like, "Where's my brother? Did they get into the escape pod? Oh my God." Because this is Escape Pod 1, it is so tragic. Even if you think at this point that the Nomai are the cause of the destruction of the universe, even if you see them as villains, it is really difficult not to feel deep sympathy for them here. It's so tragic.
Something also that's really tragic too about this section is like once you get into the Hanging City, like even outside of that initial quick settlement, you can see the remnants of like schools and other stuff that were affected by the ghost matter.
Yeah, a lot of
explodes, like
a lot of children's skeletons here.
Yeah, it's really heavy. It's what's crazy about the Hanging City is just like there is there's a lot to explore. Like, this is where you get most of like Nomai culture, for lack of a better term, like where you learn more about like their systems and like their I don't want to say their beliefs, but like more like kind of like almost like the way they kind of govern themselves as a nomadic group of people. You learn a lot about like how they build and like how they coexist with each other, and it really is heartbreaking to see, especially like you said with or like we both mentioned, like when you go to the schools, like you see a school meant for Nomai children, and it's absolutely heartbreaking when you go there the first time, because clearly they were in the middle of the class whenever the ghost matter hit, and it's awful. And there's just so much to explore. You see people's homes, you see like places of business, like it's really like really well thought out. Like it kind of like I was saying with Ember Twin, how like that cave system almost feels like consistently unexplorable just because there's so much, it feels like there's so much under there. It's the same with the Hanging City. It feels like there's so many different places that you could potentially go to learn more about the Nomai or what happened and all this other stuff. It's honestly surprisingly massive. And what I also love about it is just the way you described it, Rick. It's literally just a city hanging on the crust inside a planet. It's such an evocative image to think about, like a city or like an established like a town or whatever you want to call it, like just built like that, where it's just suspended in the air over a black hole of all things. Like it's crazy.
And you know what's wild too is we think of it as this like, it's so amazing, it's so beautiful. They're so genius. You know what they were thinking in their time of building this? This is pragmatic. This is out of necessity. We don't want to be building here, but we do. We just crashed here. We cannot stay in that temporary settlement. This is all we've got, right? That's that feeling of your back's against the wall, and now is the time to innovate. I love it so much.
Mm-hmm. It's great.
Why don't we, you mentioned the school district. Why don't we go in and talk about some of these districts? The school district, we kind of talked about. It's very sad. A lot of children's skeletons here. They never saw it coming, which I don't know. For children, I think you could argue that is a kindness. I don't know.
Yeah.
You also learn about the Festival of Achievement here. You had mentioned you learn about their society. They get together, I think, every 10 years and celebrate scientific achievements. They show off new inventions and new discoveries. The warp cores were shown off here that I think Thatch or perhaps Poke, I think Thatch actually was the laureate that, showed it off. There's also the Meltwater District. You can find some of Poke's diary here. It kind of expounds upon what we were talking about earlier. It's very sweet. It's endearing you to these people. They also debated about how to power the Ash Twin project, which we haven't talked about yet, but just know it's coming. They weren't sure how to power it. We kind of already talked about the sun. So again, you don't learn anything in linear order here. You're getting these little puzzle pieces, but that's what they talked about here. There's another thing in the Meltwater District, but we'll come back to that. The Eye Shrine District, there's another one here. Talks more about the eye. How can the eye be older than the universe itself? Suppose it is a relic from a previous universe. The early universe was unimaginably hot and dense. If anything existed before, it would have been destroyed. Suppose the universe is older than previously assumed. And I don't mean to keep going on, but Solanum, we see more Solanum writing here, and this is when she's older. This is really beautiful. I love this. This goes back to the religious allegory, Josh, that we were talking about, Solanum feeling the fear of God as a child. Here's what Solanum writes here. She writes, I no longer believe, as I did as a child on Ember Twin, that the eye of the universe wishes to harm us, but it may not want to be found either. In fact, the eye may not have wishes at all. We have no evidence supporting this. The terrible circumstances of our arrival here were almost certainly exactly that, circumstance. I suspect imagining we are special to the eye in some way is wishful thinking. The eye might have called out to any sentient species, or it might not have been calling out at all, and the fact that my ancestors heard the eye's signal holds no deep, specific meaning. This wouldn't be so bad. I had to stop playing for a second to chew on that whenever I read it. That is Amazing, phenomenal. I've been talking at length. Would you, by all means, please, you can respond if you would like to add in anything to this.
I mean, it just really it just is kind of showing, like, in a weird sense, like you're getting different perspectives of like this unknowable thing, you know? Like, I know it's coming from the same person. She at first starts to think that, you know, when she's a child, she thinks the eye of the universe is something evil. But now she realizes it's more something neutral, which is kind of is a more like, almost in a weird sense, like if it's something unknowable, it almost kind of feels like it's tying into, I don't want to say an atheistic, view, but it very much like, you know, what's the word I'm looking for?
I think I know what you're getting at. You know how the Nomai into the Hearthians is representative of a sort of evolution of science across time? In Solanum, I think we're seeing a parallel growth of a sort of like adjacent to the Enlightenment, right? Like people growing out of this deeply religious religion as law, and Solanum is growing into a more questioning, a more sort of like you and I talked about earlier, this questioning stage. Maybe things aren't as they seem. I think it parallels that, society's growth.
Maybe.
What would you call it philosophically, religiously?
I wasn't necessarily going for society's growth. I was thinking more just like it's a different perspective that like the meaning of the universe is that there is none type of thing, you know, like you live and then you die. Like, you know, the universe, or if the universe is sentient, it's very much like it's just, you know, it has people live and they die. It doesn't discriminate. Everyone lives, everyone dies at their given time. Not that the universe chooses it; it just kind of happens. So it's like you were talking about with the planets. You know, like it's, you know, or the tiger. The tiger doesn't know the tiger's not evil. It's just a tiger. Just like the universe is not evil. It's just the universe. It's just exists. Like it's existing. Whatever the eye of the universe is, whether it's some omniscient or sentient at the very least, like being or entity or something, or is it just something where we literally don't know. We cannot know what it is. It is impossible for us to understand because our brains work in a very specific way where something has to come from something, right?
Yeah.
Nothing just can't exist out of nothing. Like you can't make nothing and turn it into everything. It defies the law. What is it? Thermodynamics? Like matter cannot be created or destroyed or whatever the fuck.
I'm watching Full Metal Alchemist, so my brain went to the law of equivalent exchange.
There you go. Something of equal. How do you measure a human soul, though, Rick?
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
I love that show. It's been a while since I watched it, but I love that show. So that's what I feel like Solanum is getting at, where it's not necessarily that she's questioning like religion per se, but she's questioning, I mean, I guess she is. Yeah. She's not necessarily questioning like a morality of the eye of the universe. She's kind of almost insinuating there is no morality. It doesn't want to be found because it's not really like it's unknowable. Like it is unknowable. And so this relentless pursuit of knowledge to get to the unknowable, who knows what's going to happen. So yeah, I don't know. It is an interesting, it's cool to see her as a character evolve as you play through the game and read more of these logs.
She also evolves in a way that philosophy evolved in the Western world too. This idea of maybe the meaning is that the universe doesn't have meaning. This shook a lot of people. This is where existentialism came from, right? Kind of starting with Nietzsche, who was a proto-existentialist, going into Simone de Beauvoir, Jean-Paul Sartre, and Albert Camus, who was the progenitor of this thing called absurdism, which is, I've seen people liken absurdism to Outer Wilds. I don't know that I agree. Absurdism's whole thing is looking the meaninglessness of life in the face, realizing it's absurd, and choosing to live on anyway. I don't know. We can maybe talk about that next time. I don't know if that slots in one-to-one, but it's interesting to think about. And Solanum is going through that, and Solanum is realizing, maybe my ancestors didn't have it quite so right. Maybe the eye didn't want us to come here. Maybe we weren't summoned. Maybe this is just a fact of the universe. Maybe it just is, and that's okay. It's beautiful, man. I love it. If for no other reason, some people might say, well, this doesn't give me the answers. I don't know what the eye is, and I want to know more. Give me Outer Wilds 2. And it's like, no.
The point is to not know.
The point is to not know. That is the virtue of this game, not knowing. It's like G.I. Joe said, not knowing is half the battle, right? I mean, they implied that anyway.
Knowing is half the battle. Therefore, not knowing is also half the battle. You're not wrong.
Yeah, that's what they meant. Totally.
That's the flip. That's the reverse. I mean, if you read between the lines, right? G.I. Joe is telling you to be dumb. It's not knowing something is half the battle. Actually, or it's telling you to be curious. Because not knowing is half the battle to learning something new.
There you go. That's a more positive spin on it. I like it.
There you go.
That's the Eye Shrine. Solanum, beautiful. There's also the fourth area that is inaccessible by normal means is the Black Hole Forge. Inexplicably,
yes.
I wrote this in a completely different area of the notes. I don't know why I did it that way, but I did. The Black Hole Forge, this is what I alluded to earlier. You have to adjust the controls of it here in the Meltwater District. You have to raise it where it's sitting normally is like too close to the black hole for you to get in. So you have to raise it using these controls. Then you have to leave this planet and warp to the Black Hole Forge from the Ash Twin, which we'll get to next time. But when you warp there, it is a part of Brittle Hollow. It's the last part. You just can't get there normally. So we could talk about it here. This is where we get more lore on the Ash Twin project.
Mm-hmm.
Poke writes here, the white hole cores are for the warp receivers. Each of the 6 receivers are being constructed at different locations, so those deliveries will be a greater pain in your cervical spine. I forget who he's talking to there. The tower designs in the high energy lab on Ember Twin reveal each receiver's location. They built this really fascinating warp technology to get them from planet to planet as they were constructing the Ash Twin project, the Sun Station, all of this at the same time. And you learn more about that here. I'm pretty sure Black Hole Forge is named because they were forging the cores here, right? I mean, I didn't write that down, but that makes sense, right?
I would assume so. I think that's right.
I hope so, man. I hope so.
What is interesting though, the way you described to get to the Southern Observatory, I did it a different way.
Let's talk about that. It was a bear for me to get here. I actually tried earlier today before we recorded. I tried to get back here and I failed. Like I still have trouble getting here. How did you get there?
I had to look up a guide. It's one of the few times I looked up a guide. There wasn't much of a guide at the time because remember I first played this when the game launched. It was originally only out on the Xbox One as well, so I had to buy a digital copy and play it that way. But anyway, what I was told is just let it fall through the black hole and just wait for it. And then once it falls through the black hole, the bottom is essentially gone. The roof, sorry, like every place that you could get into that you could not make it to otherwise, because I think the bottom was too close to the black hole or something like that. So you couldn't actually make it in up and under type of thing. So you would have to wait for it to go through the black hole, and then you could just traverse it as at your leisure, until the sun exploded. So that's all I did.
Oh, that's so much smarter.
That's literally, you just wait for it to go through the black hole. I mean, you have to do all your research in the last 5 minutes of the time thing, but generally it's not that long of a thing. And if you miss something, you can always go back and do it again, of course. So this was, I remember for the longest time, the reason I even looked this up was I had explored every other section that I possibly could. The last thing I needed was to understand what the Ash Twin project was. And this was obviously where they tell you what it is and how it works and all that. A lot of the information, about it, because then you get the final couple sections, or which we'll get into the next episode, is pretty much the ending. So this was the last bit of information that I needed to put all the puzzle pieces together. And I was like, how the fuck do you get in here? I was getting so mad because I just could not understand. Like, everything I tried, I'm like, I think I even tried originally with my ship. Like, I waited for a hole to bust open in Dark Bramble,
nice.
in Brittle Hollow, so that way I could like fly in and then try to go up and underneath it. But I think the black hole was just too strong and it always sucked me in, so it never really worked.
I kind of feel like bragging now. The way that I did it, so if you follow the signs inside, you can see that there used to be one of these like Nomai energy bridges that'll like automatically warp you across, like not warp, but like carry you across, but it's broken. However, it's still functional, so you can get in, you could step into it and it just shoots you out like a cannon. And what I did is I used that as a propellant, and then I like feathered my jetpack and my boost just right, and used the gravity of the black hole to rubber band me around and fling myself into the Southern Observatory. I only did it once. I did it once, and there's a super helpful Google Drive that we found that Josh and I have that has every piece of dialogue in the game. I couldn't get back here today, so I used that. But my last playthrough, that is how I got here. I took the hard way, and it took a lot of time. It was crazy. But I felt like a cowboy, man. It was fun.
It's amazing. Holy shit.
This you were right
wild.
though. You were right. This is a very important area. It has the Giants Deep Cyclones models. There's a very funny little note here. Like somebody came over just to observe these, and they were like, why did you make models of these cyclones? Why couldn't you just write it down? And I forget who wrote it, but they were like, I very much wanted to make these models, so I did. It's like, cool. This is where they determined that the eye was in orbit around our sun within a finite, albeit enormous, range. So it is not just random. There is an orbit. This is where the idea for the probe came about, the orbital probe cannon. Remember, there are primitive eye locators on the Adderlock. There's one on the Southern Observatory here on the top of the planet. One on Ember Twin, I believe, or maybe Ash Twin, I can't remember. But they don't work so well because of quantum stuff, right? It's a little too difficult to work. So Mallow says, we know what the eye looks like thanks to the quantum moon. Apologies, more on that next time. It's just how it goes. So what if we try to find the eye visually instead? Let's send out a probe. And this is where that idea comes to fruition. They elect to build it around Giants Deep because, one, it's farthest away from the sun. Dark Bramble wasn't there at the time. And two, it doesn't have a moon. Giants Deep doesn't have a moon. So there's nothing in orbit to interfere with it. This is where, I don't know, like finding this, was amazing to me. I was like, oh my God, this is where it happened. This is why everything's coming together. My puzzle is almost complete.
It's all coming up Millhouse.
Yes. Yes. I don't know that Millhouse would be faring so well out here, but otherwise, yes. Brittle Hollow, man. This is where I came back time and time again. I spent most of my time here. The gravity crystals, I know we kind of skated past this. They are stunning. Like they are awe-inspiring the first time you step into them and you're walking on the ceiling and you look up and the black hole is just raging right there. And because you can do it, if you jump a little too high, you lose the gravity crystals and get sucked into the black hole. It is just, I felt like a kid again, like a child in a candy shop. I was so excited doing these gravity crystals, and there's a lot of them here. Like they made a whole trail with them. It is so cool.
It is hard to find that childlike sense of wonder the older you get, not necessarily because you become more jaded, though that definitely is part of it. But also because you've just seen more, like you have more of a base of knowledge for things that, especially in games where like, it's not new and exciting anymore. You've played hundreds of games now at this point, tons and tons of games, and you've experienced different things. So when a game is able to replicate that childlike sense of wonder again, and whether it's through gameplay mechanics or visuals, and this kind of does a little bit of both. And what's interesting about it is that it's honestly kind of simple. If you think of it in terms of like Mario Galaxy, it's just gravity. They put a little gravity crystal. It makes you stick to a surface, and then that's that. But even while that idea is simple, in games that we're used to now, what makes it so awe-inspiring is seeing like basically what the black hole. It's just nothingness that is absorbing in on itself, that you're just staring into, while you're somehow also, unless the moon doesn't destroy Brittle Hollow like it's going to. If that moon wasn't there, you would just be staring into nothingness. You could live there, right? Like you would have a bunch of people who would end up getting fallen into the black hole and have to go back through the White Hole Station. But they thought of that. What's weird about it is that they took a section of this solar system where you have this monstrous what you would perceive as unknowable thing, a black hole. Like what could possibly happen with that? And they make it fun. You don't die when you fall into it. You just go to the White Hole Station. They set up a little space station, like, oh, this happened, all right, we'll just send you back to where you started. No problem. They have a whole way station for you so you can get back into the city. Like, it's interesting how you would take something like, I think what makes it so whimsical almost is that something that could be so monstrous, because you think of a black hole in space, that's just terrifying. Nothing gets what happens inside a black hole, and they're just like, oh, you just get sucked out the other side. It's no big deal, everything's fine. And they almost make it like, I think they make it childlike. They make space exploration childlike, and like alien discovery childlike, because these aliens aren't necessarily evil. They're just inquisitive. And yeah, they as we've discussed before, like they have some pretty fucked up ideas, blowing up the sun and whatnot, but they're more nuanced than just good or evil. They're just, they're people, they're beings, they're just like you and me type of thing. And they built their city in this weird, improbable location, but it's also kind of wonderful and whimsical at the same time. It's just, there's a lot to love about this.
You said that it's so simple, but at the same time, it's so innovative and exciting. I don't mean to diminish what they were able to do. I certainly don't. And somebody could easily point at Mario Galaxy and say, what about that? Gotcha. But I think a key part of this is, and I've said this on the show before, is that we see this team coming in to create a video game that isn't their primary mode of work, occupation, or expression in this life. Put it another way, you have scientists, physics nerds coming in to make a video game. And we see this with 1000 Times Resist too. We have theater people, musicians, live theater artists coming in to make a video game. You see this with, Josh Sawyer, kind of. He's a huge, huge, huge history buff and nerd, and he comes in and makes Pentiment. That's a little cheating because he's also a very, very well-known game designer. But you see this in so many instances. John Darnielle from the Mountain Goats writing novels, too. Charles Ives, an insurance person. Well, I'm kind of cheating with that, but whatever. The point is this. When somebody comes in with an outside perspective, they're not limited by, in the same, or at least not in the same way, by the shackles of what's come before, right? They're not haunted by the specter of Bob Dylan if they've never listened to Bob Dylan. If you're not steeped in the medium and you're not living and breathing the medium every day, you can open your eyes and see the forest through the trees. Right? Does what I'm saying make sense? The fact that they're not video game designers is a huge boon to them and their creativity. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
No, I'm 100% with you on that. I feel like sometimes, when you get into games as much as you and I are, we become quote unquote capital G gamers, and you kind of forget, not everything revolves around that, and you forget, there's certain aspects of, like when you put too much stock in one medium, if that makes sense, you kind of lose a sense of balance, as it were.
Oh, totally.
And by having more people in game design and game development, who didn't grow up as capital G gamers, but kind of fell in love with the medium later on for different reasons. That makes really interesting art and really interesting games. I remember when I was in college and I went to school for game design, one of the first things my teacher said, my game design teacher, his name was Jason, he was an awesome guy. He's like, you need to stop playing games and start making them, and you need to start reading. One thing that game designers are good is you need to be well read. Like, he talked specifically about like Cliff Bleszinski because he was big at the time. Yeah, he was like the big because I think at the time, did Cliff Bleszinski do Gears of War? I can't remember. I know he did.
I know the name. I know
Far Cry 2.
I know the name. I know he's an OG. I can't remember the series.
Yeah. But anyway, but one of the things they talked about, like if he like referencing stuff like God of War and this and that and like all these different games, like, do you really think like they just like knew all this stuff? Like, they had to read books. Like, you have to like study literature and other things to be more well-rounded when you want to design games. I mean, hell, the same goes even for if we're not talking about just games, like podcasting, right? Like everyone. So like I do that Final Fantasy draft on my show every year. That idea came from a James Bond podcast. Right? Like, you listen to things outside of what your norm is, or you partake in media or art outside of what your norm is, and it can inspire you to do different things. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back for that. I literally just took their idea and was like, of a James Bond fantasy draft. I'm like, well, what if I did that for video games? And then Final Fantasy was the first thing that popped in my mind, and it went from there. So like, you can take ideas from other places and just borrow them and make them your own. And I feel like that's super important. Like, if you look at Outer Wilds, these are a bunch of like science kids, it seems like, especially what was, didn't you say Alex Beecham? This was like a grad thesis grad school project. Grad thesis project. Wasn't meant to be necessarily like, I'm going to be a capital G game designer, but it was coming up with like all these different ideas, and it was meant for a school project. Like, that's amazing. And so it is super important to be well read. And I say that very hypocritically because I don't read very often, but I know I should, and I know where my limitations are at the very least. But like, it's super important. So when you bring people in who are not from quote unquote the capital G gamers, you can get some really interesting and fun and wild games out there. And I think I would love to see more of that.
Dude, there's a certain type of person that might get frustrated that we are not talking about the game, but this deserves to be...
This is about the game.
This is more than the game. This deserves to be talked about a little bit more. I could not agree more. I would applaud if I could. And this is something, it applies to everybody. Like we said, not just podcasters, not just game designers. You cannot be a whole human, a nourished soul, if you are not embracing all that life has to offer. When I was in music, when I was at my quote-unquote prime, doing like teaching, national competitions, international competitions, when I was playing like a motherfucker, do you know when I played the least creatively? When I did nothing but listen to saxophone music. And then when I started listening to violas, singers, cellists, clarinetists, then the playing got better. And do you know when it got even better? When I started reading and taking time away from the horn and living life. Do you know when my podcasting is the least creative? When I'm only playing video games. I make it a point. I don't know about you, man. I make it a point every day to not just play video games. Some days I just don't at all. I read. I've been reading a lot more lately. This is going to sound dumb. I do yo-yo. I learned literally today.
No,
I learned
dumb.
2 yo-yo tricks today. I studied Japanese, philosophy, whatever. But all of this stuff, this is a life education. It is not enough to be an expert in podcasting, an expert in classical saxophone, an expert in game design. That is very good. That is a noble pursuit. But you are malnourishing yourself if you do not live your life outside of that. That is a recipe for burnout, for one, and it is no way to get a proper nutrition in terms of what life has to offer. And being that this game is so focused on how special consciousness is, I would feel hypocritical. I would feel like I'm not doing my job if I didn't come in and say, Josh, that was a goddamn amazing point that you made, and I need to cap this. This is Capital I important. This is more important than playing video games. Like, if all we do is play games for the podcast and put out weekly podcasts, we're just playing games, we're not spending time with our loved ones, we're not doing any other hobbies, what does it all matter? It doesn't. Geez, I'm practically shouting. I'm recording in a new location today, which listeners don't care, but I'm recording in a new location where I can shout this late at night. And like, thank goodness, because like that got me fired up, man. Thank you for bringing that up. That is so well observed.
I mean, I wish I could take credit for the observation, credit my game design professor, you know? But it's true. Like you even if it's within the same medium, you try even if you just look at like games, right? Like one of the things I've found the older I get and through this podcast is I don't like a specific. I mean, I have preferences. You know, I'm a platformer fan. Probably I would say is my favorite genre. But like I play RPGs, I play FPSs, I play RTS games, I play racing games periodically, though I'm not generally a big fan. Like, branching out even between different genres is healthy for you like that. Like, and I think something you touched on is just, you know, stuff outside of video games is super important and good for your mental health. Like I've said it before, like if for some reason my own show, you know, Still Loading is able to go, like I somehow magically earn a lot of money off of it. Not saying that's the reason for it or anything like that, but you know, like that would be nice, you know, to be able to make a good chunk of change off of it. I would never want it to be my full-time gig. I don't. I like having that work-life balance. I like not having, like, there'll be days where I don't play games at all. And then it's made the times that I do play, usually after my daughter goes to bed, that much more special because now this is like, I've earned this. It's not just because I'm doing this just for work. I'm doing this just, you know, I'm doing this for the podcast, but I'm also doing this for fun.
And not only are you doing it for fun and for the podcast, but you are integrating a social aspect and engaging with the community writ large. Sure, there's something to be said, like we can't be doing this in person, and that's unfortunate because think of how much better, I think about this all the time, my podcast would be way better if I did this in person with people, but it's just not feasible. But we're at least being social with it, you know? There's layers to this stuff, man, and it is capital I important. The capital T truth, as David Foster Wallace, my favorite author, always says, the capital T truth of living life. And we just stumbled upon it. You know, you and I, who'd have thought these two podcasters could reveal
two gals from Pennsylvania
could reveal life's greatest mysteries. By the way, I didn't know that you were a game design guy. That's very cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself an expert by any stretch. I have an associate's degree in it, so it's not like it's anything like great, and not that I necessarily remember the tenets and the rules and all the stuff I learned, but I do think it gave me a deeper appreciation for, you know, the work that goes into making games and talking about them at some level. And I was going to say, like, in a weird sense, what we're talking about too with, like, you know, we're not just playing games solo, we're doing it socially for the podcast. We have, like, I think one of the best things about starting, you know, my show is getting to meet people like you and interact with people like yourself and all the, you know, the little podcasting network, I would say, even though we're not like a network, you know, but a podcasting group of friends that we all, you know, we hang out, well, digitally speaking, I should say, but, you know, like we give each other our time for our respective shows because we like hanging out with each other to do episodes like this. And community has been like the podcasting community, excuse me, is one of the main reasons I still keep going. It's not the only reason I still like doing it, but it makes it a lot easier to have friends in the space. And that community aspect is a very big theme to bring it back to Outer Wilds, Rick, so we can continue on with the conversation. That is a major theme in this game that we will, I'm assuming, based off your outline, we're going to be diving into a lot more next week.
You assume right, my friend. You have not made an ass out of anybody. You are spot on. This is terrific. I'm going to keep this all in. I might put a disclaimer up front, you know, about whatever. We'll see how it goes. This is terrific. I can't wait to finish this out. But for today, let's finish on some more Outer Wild stuff. Let's introduce Dark Bramble. We won't go through the whole thing, but let's at least introduce it. So Dark Bramble, Josh, you pointed out in the first episode, I think we both did at different times, that we can hear Feldspar's harmonica coming from here. Feldspar, of course, the legendary missing pilot, the first in flight for Outer Wilds Ventures, a total legend, right? And we can hear his harmonica both on Timber Hearth in that seed and coming out of here. And when you when you fly up to Dark Bramble in your Prius 2012, you can, what you see is that it's the remnants of a planet. We talked about that last time. It exploded. But the center, and where Feldspar's harmonica is coming from, is in this seed. And this is kind of where the game has some horror influence. You fly into the seed and suddenly, think all my Doctor Who fans think of a TARDIS. It's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
You fly into this seed it's barely bigger than your ship. It's just big enough for you to fit through. I know that because I crashed at one point and, well, I got a "you died" screen, but next time. You fly in and suddenly you're in this massive, murky, it looks like deep sea for more reasons than one, this murky environment. You don't know which way is up, which way is down, and who is north and what is south anyway. You can't tell, but if you follow your signal scope to Feldspar's harmonica, you can hear it coming through another seed. There's another seed in here. There's a pocket dimension within a pocket dimension. And I'm glad that we're just introducing this here and saving the big talk till next time, because I still am not certain of how this works. It breaks my brain. Do you get this, man, or am I just really dumb? Thinking about this stuff for too long actually short circuits me a little bit, and all but steam coming out of my ears. Do you know what I mean? I physically can't think about this stuff for too long.
You mean how Dark Bramble works?
How quantum stuff works, and how, yes, Dark Bramble too. I have to just accept that I don't understand it, but I accept it, because if I try to think about how it works, I break down. And I just I can't function.
I'm with you on that. So Dark Bramble, it wasn't too hard for me to grasp because it reminds me of the Lost Woods from Ocarina of Time or any Zelda game where there's a very specific path, and if you deviate from that path, you end up back at the beginning. The way you figure out
how it works here?
Yeah, because you can accidentally I was watching a friend of the podcast, Drew the Damager. I don't know if he'll listen to this after he beats the game. He's been streaming it currently, and it was funny because I don't want to give him the clues, but to get to Feldspar, right? I'm so bad with the names. To get to Feldspar, you like you said, you use the signal scope, you follow his sound, and that's how you know which way to go. Drew hadn't figured that out yet, and I'm gripping my desk. I'm like, just put on the signal scope. I didn't tell him, of course. I wanted to let him figure it out, but so he kept flying, and he got to a spot he was able to figure out something where he got past all the anglerfish, which I don't think we haven't. Did you say that they were in there? I forget.
I didn't, but I mean, what the hell? We're here. There are anglerfish in here, and they'll get you.
We'll tell you how next episode. We'll explain how you get by them. That'll be a little tease, a little soupçon, for next episode. But he got past a bunch of them, and then he just kept going, and then he flew through another hole, and then he ended up back outside of Dark Bramble.
Oh wow!
I don't know if necessarily if you choose the wrong path, then you'll come back out, but it certainly kind of felt like that in a weird sense. But yeah, he appeared back out on the other side. I'm like, oh, that's interesting, because I don't know if I had even seen that. But yeah, so Dark Brambles is confusing because you fly inside of it, and all of a sudden there's multiple other places you could go while having to dodge anglerfish, which we'll explain next week. And as for quantum stuff and how that works, I don't know, man. Based off this game, I understand the game mechanics, but when the whole idea of what is it Schrodinger's cat or whatever, where you put a cat inside of a box with a radioactive isotope or whatever, and that radioactive isotope could potentially is going to kill that cat because it's radiation and all that stuff. But since you can't see it, technically it's neither dead or alive because you can't observe it. So it exists in this weird parallel state. And I understand that's where kind of the basics of like quantum theory. I don't know if it starts there or ends there. I don't know wherever the fuck quantum theory starts or ends. But when I hear that, I'm like, no, you're fucking stupid. The cat's dead in the box. Like based off of previous experience that radiation kills living beings, that cat is dead whether we can see it or not. And I understand the logic of it to a degree where it's like, well, how do you know until you can observe it? It's in this weird state of, but then that makes it seem like existence is just individualized, you know, like whatever you see is only real to you and to no one else, which I guess technically true, but that seems more philosophical than scientific, if that makes sense. So,
well, I mean, science and philosophy are the yin and the yang, right? I mean, they can't exist without each other, and they bleed into each other. Maybe
so.
Existence is individualistic. Maybe solipsism is true. It's not. I mean, I don't subscribe to that, but maybe, who knows?
I mean, it just seems like a weird. Honestly, know what it seems like? It seems like someone pretentious came up with an idea to make themselves feel smarter. Be like, technically, you don't know if this cat's alive or dead. I'm like, well, you shot it. It's in there.
There's a variation of that meme on philosophy like this, because Schrodinger's cat is kind of philosophy too, where it's like the meme is like people who read philosophy and it's like, you know, someone in a turtleneck drinking wine, like that kind of snooty kind of thing. And then it's like people who do philosophy and it's like a crackhead like doing some kind of drugs that clearly hasn't slept in like 3 weeks.
He's seeing some type of light. He's seeing some type of like higher being because he's losing sanity slowly.
I ate this random stuff I found in the garage, and now I'm ready to talk about the meaning of existence. Anyways, let's close out by following this harmonica. If we go in, and I think you can do this actually without encountering a single anglerfish, I think.
Yeah.
But if you follow it into dark bramble and then you follow through one more seed, you eventually come along this skeleton of an anglerfish. And wouldn't you know it, Josh alluded to this way at the beginning of the first episode. You see some trees and you see a campfire, and holy shit, it's Feldspar. He's alive.
Mm-hmm.
Here he is. And we'll talk to him next time, but there's your cliffhanger here. Feldspar alive, and then I'll put the YouTube reaction like over that, and I'll get like thousands
with a
of
shocked
folks.
face on it.
Yeah, with an arrow pointing to Feldspar with alive in all caps. Man,
you should totally do that as just a test, just like randomly, just to see will the algorithm work for this, and everyone's gonna be, who the hell is Feldspar? Like anyone who doesn't play Outer Wilds is not gonna know any of this. Last thing I want to comment on this is like when you do get to Feldspar, we haven't touched on this really throughout these 2 episodes, but I find this kind of charming. Is, you know, when you're out in space, you only have a certain amount of oxygen, but if you get near trees, you can get oxygen, and there's conveniently just trees randomly growing, like random like in a cave. And when you get to Feldspar, he has like a bunch of trees inside. It's kind of cool looking inside.
So it's not random though.
Oh, is it not?
Yeah, so I didn't write this down. I can't remember where I found this, but they have like...
Did they plant them?
Yeah, they have like emergency tree rations or something that they call them. That they can... I think
awesome.
I think Feldspar says that like when he crashed here, he was away from the anglerfish and he said, well, this seems as good as any spot, so he threw down the rations. Like, yeah, they must like have fast-growing tree seeds or something.
Ah, that's really cool. I love that though. So that they even write it into a narrative reasoning for trees growing underground. It's great.
It is very cool. It's very cute. But yeah, Feldspar's here. We'll talk to him. We'll pick up next time talking to him. We've got the rest of Dark Bramble. We've got the Quantum Moon, which is optional, and I cannot believe it. The Ash Twin, and then the end of the game. Those all kind of tie into each other pretty smoothly. It'll probably be another episode of roughly the same length, maybe a little shorter. But we'll get through it. I'm proud of this conversation. Is it a little long-winded? Sure. Are some people going to wish that we stuck to the game and the game only? Yeah. But now that, after I rebooted the show, I'm doing things a little closer to how I want them to be, and I will gladly, I'm making the show that I want to listen to, right? I would gladly listen to something for 3 hours if it talks meaningfully around the game, rather than just, doing a glorified Wikipedia summary like some other shows do. None in our circles, of course.
Yeah.
Like I didn't mean for that to be like a dig at anybody, but there are thousands of gaming podcasts, and I mean, whatever. But
no, but that's what I like about like about your show, and that's what I think is you can't do it with every game. Like I recently covered like the Mario RPGs, right? There's not a lot of thematic material in Mario RPG. There is some, especially in like, what is it? Thousand Year Door has some wild shit happening in there. But like not every game lends itself to that type of conversation, but games like Outer Wilds, games like Celeste, the last episode I was on over here, there you can, like, when you dive into themes, you're going to go on tangents, because I shouldn't even say tangents. Like, everything we brought up was connected to this game. We were talking about how this game invoked religion in kind of like a tangential way, maybe, or like depending on how you interpret it. And we went off on that because it tied in with the game. So I think those types of conversations, like, they do apply to this because it all is in service of the game. It's not like we mentioned, like, we got a spaceship and then we decided to suddenly start talking about SpaceX or some shit like that. Like, this all ties into the themes and thematic material of the game. And I think podcasts like yours and podcasts I really like that do stuff like this treat games as art. And when you discuss art, you discuss themes, and you discuss what makes games interesting to me. It's not just the themes of the story, it's also talking about how the gameplay mechanics tie into those themes. And one of the themes we haven't talked about, and we alluded to with community and everything, it's very much like the gameplay mechanics really tie into that. We'll get to that next week, but like, I don't think you should feel bad about the tangents. I think they all apply to this game, and I think these types of conversations, in a weird sense, are important because art is meant to make you think.
Alrighty, folks. While I don't wish to cut Josh off, we did have some technical issues with the sound files, the audio files, and I don't have a portion of the ending of Josh's plugs and promotions. So, with apologies to Josh, I want to go ahead and plug his show myself and give him a huge thank you for being such a fantastic guest with me on these episodes. So, the Still Loading Podcast, you can find the Still Loading Podcast in the episode description. You can click on the link. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. I like Podcast Addict. I might change up, but you can find it anywhere, wherever you like to listen. Still Loading is a fantastic show that has a nice mix of discussion and humor. Punch a Nazi Month, as Josh had mentioned on the previous episode, and maybe at another point in this episode, is upcoming in April, starting on April 20th, I believe. Appropriate. For now, if you wanted to check out Still Loading, at the time I am recording this insert, which is the day this episode gets published if you're listening in real time, you can check out the most recent episode, which is on Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, with two special guests, friend of the show, Jared from the Play Along Podcast, and Try from My Life in Gaming, one of my personal favorite YouTube channels, I might add. Really terrific stuff. Josh is going through a lot of Mario stuff right now. You can also hear about Paper Mario. You can hear about Super Mario RPG, and if you go back a little further, even Portal. Classic little chestnut there. Still Loading is a great show, and I highly recommend it to anybody that likes this show. And speaking of this show, just like you can find Josh's links in the description, you can find mine too. If you want to hang out with the show on Discord, which, by the way, please do join. We have a lot of great conversations in there. You can. It's free, it's open to the public, and the links are in the description. You can also find us on the social medias. Blue Sky is the one where we are most active. We do have an Instagram as well. And check us out on TikTok and YouTube Shorts. If you really like the work that I'm doing on the show, I invite you to check out the Patreon as well. That's www.patreon.com/pixelprojectradio. You can check out the different tiers that we offer and what you can get in return for those tiers. Of course, at the top of that is my love and gratitude. So thank you. And finally, rating and reviewing. That is the number one way to get the podcast up in Al Gore's rhythm and discovered easier by other folks. Giving a rating or a review wherever you listen, Spotify, Podcast Addict, Apple Podcast, Overcast, wherever you happen to listen. If you feel so inclined, give us a rating and a review. That is all from me. This was such a fun episode. I had a blast doing this with Josh. And I'm really looking forward to number 3. We've already recorded it, it's in the tank, and it's going to be fantastic. Thank you all for sticking around to listen. I hope you loved the show today, and I hope you love the next one. And until then, I'm Rick, I'm your host. I'm signing off for now. See you next time.